its architecture, just the shape of the building, communicates to the world something really interesting is happening here.
We're all embarking on a transformational sort of a journey. The world's sort of changing, and it's changing very, very quickly.
There's a real energy inside this building. It's packed full of amazing speakers giving really interesting talks, from tech to how to design films. This wonderful program of lots of different experts from around the world.
Being able to connect with other people and realize how similar we are, honestly, and how much we can benefit from collaborating together. And I think that's really going to spark a new level of creativity.
What's been very interesting for me, having visited Saudi a few times now, is an incredible groundswell of creativity and excitement. There is a creativity here that's not been tapped, and I think the opportunity now to unleash it through art, music and culture is going to be fascinating.
I believe that the opportunities that are being offered here in ITRA are really great for the youth in Saudi Arabia, especially that they're bringing global knowledge inside the Eastern Province.
Really opening up ideas around creativity and how that can actually influence the future generation.
This is very unforgiving architecture. It's very reduced, so everything needs to be perfect. So we're having details which would have to be extremely precise in order to work properly. The entrance pavilion, which is like, it's different, that's the only one. However, all the other 4 pavilions are identical, yet they're turned. And we created a geometry where they will always look different depending on how you turn them. We wanted, of course, to get a feel that you're walking to some extent into another world. So we're having different layers to that. So you're coming into the pavilion, you're coming to this courtyard, walk, of course, into the cooler Nordic light. And then you're in that space and can really be immersed in the art of Edvard Munch. We needed to create, just from an engineering point of view, a space for fine art. However, we also wanted to use the Great Hall. The perforation of the inner skin, it creates this kind of starry sky, and this is something which relates very closely also to some of the art from Edvard Munch. So we decided early on, okay, we want to use it, we want to have it part of it, we want to have it as a backdrop for our pavilions.
Munch really cannot be explained in a few words. His historical significance in the art world, and now bringing him here to this region and the significance of that itself is beautiful. We aim to always inspire the youth, and the Great Hall's objective is to bring world culture to Saudi Arabia. This is a prime example of that, and young artists can come here and learn, and I promise you that they will be excited to try something new after they come here and feel the sense of history in these paintings.
Wizard of Oz is the musical theater that tells the iconic story of the MGM movie about Dorothy, who dreams of rainbows and ends up leaving Kansas in a tornado and ends up in the magical world of Oz. In the merry old land of Oz. This show has been to almost 200 theaters throughout the world, and I have to say, there's not any that are as close as world-class as ITHRA. State-of-the-art facility, professional staff, a beautiful, beautiful theater, incredible designs. It's a very, very special venue to be a part in this beautiful part of the world. The magic of storytelling with music and dance, and to bring that to a part of the world where civilization really began.
The Wizard of Oz is the first time that we've used the theatre's full capabilities of its automated line system and orchestra pit. We've had many shows here, but since opening, this is the first time the orchestra pit has been used to its full potential.
The audiences have been so welcoming and so giving. Honestly, I remember on opening night, like we were, as a cast, all pretty emotional. It was an unforgettable experience.
Do my bidding, fly. Fly! Fly!
So Bethany, our stage manager, and she's standing behind this screen where she is watching the show. And so every light cue that happens, every time the bubble comes in with Glinda, or the witch flies, or a different set piece moves in and out, she calls that. So when she gives the go-ahead, all of the crew members move the set pieces in and out, fly Glinda in, truly make the magic happen. Whatever it is, always do what you love, because through our passions we are able to create such beauty, and we're able to give that to the world, and that is a gift that can truly be unlike any other.
It was pretty magical when first arriving here to see Ithra as you're driving around the road as you lead into the entrance. You almost feel like you're on a magical road to Oz.
I think it's amazing that the program represents a promise of continuous enrichment for the people of Saudi Arabia, and the fact that they are achieving that promise through the arts, through science, and through culture, like, it's truly spectacular. Probably one of the best words to describe Ithra is magical.
This exhibition is actually very important event because it is the meeting point between the great culture of Saudi Arabia and this wonderful museum, which is really amazing for technology and for culture, with some excellence that comes from Italy with the drawings of Leonardo da Vinci.
In Saudi Arabia, for the first time, you have the chance to watch the works of Leonardo da Vinci. I try to show how we can connect an artist of the Renaissance time of the 15th century with an artist of contemporary that work in our age. We try to put in relation the energy of the 20th century, the sun, with the energy of the 21st century, the moon.
ما يهمنا في هذا المعرض فضلا انه يقدم اعمال تعرض لاول مره خارج ايطاليا ليوناردو دافنشي المهندس، انها ايضا تقدم لنا نبذه عن دور الحضاره العربيه في الربط ما بين الحضارتين اليونانيه القديمه وحضاره اوروبا في عصر النهضه.
It's wonderful that Ithra can have some drawings by one of the most known geniuses in the world, which is Leonardo da Vinci. And I think that Leonardo da Vinci would be very happy to know that his drawings can be admired in Saudi Arabia, especially in this splendid technological center. I think that it's amazing how Saudi Arabia is expressing itself with this building. With not only is it wonderful from the point of view of art, but also of knowledge with the library, and also with the idea of teaching people with the museums and the different settlements here. I hope it's the first step of many collaborations among our countries.
I think the dream of flight is something we've all had since we were kids. The idea of just being free from gravity and rising up and moving where we want in three-dimensional space. I think in a small way, in a very noisy way, we deliver that for a moment to people when they watch that.
rising from the sand of Saudi Arabia, a structure designed to make history.
The first time I saw this project, I was just overwhelmed.
You have organic, free-form shapes.
Nothing like it has ever been attempted.
This is the most experimental, deep dive into technologies that we've ever done.
The stakes are enormous.
The question is not what is difficult, the question is what is not difficult.
The pressure is unrelenting.
You know what's the plan. Somebody can do it faster than me.
A lot of confusion, a lot of tension.
There was some kind of communication problem or something.
Engineers, you bring them something simple, they will complain. You bring them something complex, they will complain.
But if builders succeed, they'll help propel this nation towards a bright future.
These young children, they are the future leaders, innovators. They are the future Saudi.
And unveil a new wonder of the world.
People will wonder, how is it built? How is it done?
emergency, please follow the instructions of center staff and make your way calmly to the exits. We hope you enjoyed the performance, and once again, welcome to the ITHRA Theatre. رحبوا معنا على المسرح مقدمي منصة تنوين روعة بخش وعبد الله الدماس.
يا أهلا وسهلا، مرحبا بكم في مسرح إثراء، وأهلا بكم على منتدى تنوين للمرة الثانية على التوالي. معاكم روعة بخش،
معاكم عبد الله الدماك، وحنكون معاكم الليلة، ومرة حماس ما شاء الله. الكراود اليوم جدا عالي. إيش إحساسك؟ نايس. ايش احساسك روعه في اليوم الثالث لملتقى تنوين؟
صراحه زعلانه انه اليوم الاخير، بس فرحانه كمان انه في بعض طالباتي جو من جده اليوم كمان.
اوه نايس.
يا اهلا وسهلا.
نايس، تحيه والله. كل اللي جاء، في ناس كثير جو من خارج المنطقه الشرقيه. نايس نايس، تحيه والله، اعطوهم تحيه كبيره يا جماعه.
نورتونا اليوم.
طيب، واللي اول مره يزور تنوين، في ناس اول مره يزوروا تنوين؟ اوه في اعداد، في ناس زي ذا. طيب، اللي ما يعرف عن تنوين، تنوين عبارة عن موسم إبداعي لمدة أسبوعين يتناول مواضيع خاصة بالفنون والمعرفة والثقافة. وثيم التنوين السنة هذه شوية مختلف عن السنة اللي راحت. السنة اللي راحت كان حول مفهوم الزعزعة أو الديسربشن. السنة هذه حول مفهوم إيش؟ اللعب. يا سلام. واللعب هو ما هو مختص بالأطفال، اللعب لنا إحنا ككبار نحتاجه، والكل أحد يحتاج إنه يكون يلعب حتى يقدر يستكشف، والاستكشاف طبعاً ينمي الإبداع وينمي المواهب اللي عندنا. وهنا يجي دور تنوين في تجديد مفهوم اللعب. وعندنا خلال تجارب تنوين في الأسبوعين القادمة تجارب جداً كثيرة. أخذت لفة حول الفعاليات المصاحبة للمسرح، يعني شفتوا كثير، شفتوا الفيرتشوال رياليتي، شفتوا الدمى، شفتوا اللعب بالورق، ومعارض تفاعلية كثيرة موجودة. ولا تنسوا كمان إنه بكرة في كمان حاجة سبيشل. أوه حركت عليها. طيب، عارفين الغزال الأسمر صح؟ الغزال الأسمر اللي هو مين؟ تيري هنري حيكون موجود بكرة في لقاء خاص. فإذا تحبوا تعرفوا أكثر عن كل فعاليات ملتقى ومنتدى تنوين، خشوا فين؟ على الويب سايت. خش الويب سايت اللي هو ithra.com/تنوين، حتلاقي الساعة وحتلاقي كل المعلومات والفعاليات الموجودة.
تمام. واليوم زي ما تعرفوا آخر يوم هنا في تنوين ده الأسبوع، ولكن الأسبوع الجاي إن شاء الله حيكون متواجد المنتدى ولكن في السينما. واليوم حنتحدث عن جوانب التقنية في الألعاب. والأسبوع اللي أمس وقبل أمس تكلمنا عن الاستعداد للعب وأساليب اللعب.
وكل اللي تشوفوه في منتدى تنوين ضمن مجهود مركز الملك عبد العزيز الثقافي العالمي اللي هو إيش؟ إثراء. وهذه الجهود بذلت في تحقيق أهداف المركز الأساسية اللي هي نشر المعرفة والإبداع وتشجيع التواصل الحضاري. ونحب نذكركم أيضاً قبل لا نبدأ التوكس والبرزنتيشنز إنه في أجهزة ترانزليشن متوفرة مع الأشرز إذا تحبوا إنكم تترجموا التوكس من اللغة الإنجليزية إلى العربية. وخلونا نبدأ مع أول متحدث.
تمام. There's a quote that says, if you desire to be good, begin by believing that you are wicked. And that's what our first speaker is going to talk to us about. He's going to tell us how to possess a wicked mindset so that we can identify, evaluate, and solve our problems even before they slow us down. Please welcome the author of The Wicked Company, Mr. Marcus Kirsch.
Hello, ITHRA. Hello, Tanween. It's lovely to be here. My name is Marcus Kirsch, and today I'll talk to you about wicked companies and wicked ideas for the next 20 or so minutes. And I will wrap it up a little bit in 3 little parts, which is, what is a wicked company, why should you care, and talk a little bit about problems and uncertainties. So what is a wicked company? Like, modern organizations are missing the capability to solve wicked problems. Wicked problems are type of problems that are like moving targets. So there's problems that don't move and problems that do. And often it is because there's people who sort of fit in or not fit in, and I'm going to talk a little bit about me, how I got to this wicked problem stuff maybe first. So a lot of us have the issue sometimes to fit in into different contexts, and we move through different contexts all through our lives. And that's pretty much true for me. And I ended up fitting into too many places, and now I have a lot of them. So I do lots of different things. Last year, for example, I started running. And last Tuesday, I ended up running my first half marathon. I was like, okay, I'm doing something, it's working. And then 4 days later, this guy ran a whole marathon in 2 hours. And I was like, okay, it's good to do something new. And I think the really nice thing about this is that it just puts things into context. You actually get a better feel for what this man was achieving, because I tried my little part in a very bad way, and this is what he did. And it's been like that my whole life, where I tried a lot of different things, and I got different reactions. So when I was younger, I was learning ballroom dancing, for example. And at the same time, I was doing skateboarding, which confused a lot of people because of the way you dress, the way you do things. They all seem to not quite match together, and there seem to be different things seemingly unconnected. This went on. I eventually learned to be a designer, and then I learned how to be a computer coder. At the time, over 20 years ago, 25 years ago, this was not a usual thing to fit together. They were very far away pieces that are slowly now coming better together. So I ended up having this kind of background, a really multicolored, very varied, eclectic kind of background that sometimes confuses people. Sometimes people look like, wow, that's interesting. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. So because I've worked in a lot of industries, I've found that a lot of companies don't have the ability to look into all these different pieces. And I believe that the ability to look in all these different pieces gives you a more holistic view of the world. And I think it's utterly necessary to have that view, that mindset, in order to solve wicked problems. So a little bit more about what wicked problems really are. So wicked is a word that can mean 2 things. If you're not living in England or Australia, you probably know the word wicked in translation as something evil, but that's not the only meaning. The other meaning is also that it's something playfully mischievous, quite nicely fitting into the theme today. It's something that you can work around, you have to be tricky, creative, something around to work your way around it. And so it's a really nice sense that it's not just a bad thing, it can be also a good thing to figure out. In very simple terms, a wicked problem is one that is a moving target, something that you don't know quite enough about to really start finding a solution, or something that actually, while you're working on the solution, it will evolve. Any problem that includes a lot of people, for example, has a tendency to be a wicked problem. If we're looking at reducing crime, how diseases are spreading, those are all kind of things that have a lot of moving parts that just keep moving while you're trying to solve things. Tame problems are rather simple in comparison. A bridge is a good example for a tame problem. It has 2 points, you need to connect them. You put the bridge there. While you're building the bridge, it doesn't change. After the bridge is there, the problem is solved. It will not evolve into new problems most of the time. Tame problems are very much something we discovered a lot during the Industrial Revolution. The replication of a lot of different objects and products was a tame problem because you just have to replicate the same thing, do the same thing again, same thing again. The way Henry Ford solved doing that was with a process he called de-skilling. We all know the conveyor belts in the factories, but I only came across that in some research some years ago, and I was quite impressed by what it actually means, because it means that what he took was, if we have a craft and we do something, or we have the way our mindset works around the problem to solve, and the tangible skill we're doing in order to build something, they're normally interwoven. One informs the other, and we keep learning. What he did was to separate it. So he had the factory workers in the factories doing simple, small skills that they could all learn very quickly. They didn't have to think about it. And he said, well, management up there, they will make all the decisions. They will be the brain of it. The benefit of that was that he created the ability to hire cheap labor by the thousands, created factories to produce products by the thousands. And this structure has informed our organizations up until today, and we still feel that echo, and also the downsides of that. Back when we had crafts, and so this is a picture of a carpenter from Germany, and when they normally used their skills, they would practice it somewhere, and then they would have these Wanderjahre, like the journeyman years, where they would travel around and they learn same or similar and different, often different procedures in different cities. So they would travel around for a few years and learn new things by shifting context. This is something we don't do anymore. We often just stick to the departments and the silos we're working in, and we're stuck to them. So the same for everyone worked really well during the Industrial Revolution for us, but we've solved that. We can produce millions and billions of products and copies of copies very, very easily. One thing to understand of the difference between a tame and a wicked problem is that complexity is not what makes it a wicked problem. A tame problem can be really complex. Building an airplane is a very complex, tame problem. It's still an airplane. It's not going to change. The way it flies, once it starts, is all the same. Same parameters apply. Now, wicked problems are where these parameters are actually changing. If you see these new bots they have on the stock market, that's a perfect example of a wicked problem. Not only have you created an object that does something as a solution for the context it works in this case, bots buying and selling stocks. But whatever the bots are doing influences other bots, influences human beings on the stock market. They start to react to each other, and they create different behaviors that, again, because they learn from each other, and they start reacting differently, which means the original context you designed the bot for is different once the bot starts working on it. So that's the perfect example of a wicked problem that just keeps evolving, keeps changing. So to simplify it, I'll give you a definition. So a wicked problem is a problem that is difficult or impossible to solve because of incomplete, contradictory, and changing requirements. A moving target is the most simplest way I figured to explain this. A tame problem, instead, has a fixed set of parameters. Therefore, the solutions can often be achieved by finding the right algorithm, finding the right principles and rules to apply, and you can apply them again and again because the problem doesn't change. And I believe there's evidence that we're living in a world that creates increasingly more wicked problems around us because of the devices we are using. The mobile phones we have, the fact that we communicate now. When I send out a post, I can communicate to 1 million people. It will affect them, the information they have, the actions they take afterwards. Even on a very personal level, with a basic example like a mobile phone shows you that the new problems tend to be more wicked and more evolving while we're working on that. And therefore, I believe we need more wicked companies that can solve these kind of problems more. So to summarize that there's a tame problem, a lot of them that we had and solved during the Industrial Revolution, and the wicked problems of today that are ever-evolving ones, that we don't have quite organizations yet, I believe, or we need better organizations to solve those. Why should you care? Tame problems, because they can be replicated, the solution of them can be replicated and multiplied, they can get automated. This is the big fear we hear about all the time. Where are these jobs going? Well, they're getting automated because the actual task to do can be created or replicated with an algorithm. It's solved once, then it can be solved a million times, and you don't need any extra effort. Those things will all disappear. And they should maybe, because they were a bit of a drag to start doing them in the first place. So we can maybe spend more time on more interesting problems, wicked problems. Therefore, wicked problems are becoming the new marketplace. If we look at a lot of new companies, a lot of startups and so on, they're all looking at that kind of space. It's a more complex, a more moving, a more evolving kind of problem space that they are starting to provide solutions for. This is a graphic I found that by a company called intercom.com, and it shows a little bit the mindset that is actually at play when you compare a tame to a wicked organization. So all the customer here wants, or the user wants, is to ride a skateboard and do some tricks. The company supplying the ability to do so often still thinks in the bits and pieces of the product and not in the actual outcome. So product thinking, by definition, is a fairly classic approach of trying to bring a solution. A solution is not just a product. It involves a lot of different things that might be way more complex. And the more progressive companies are starting to think like that, and they will include in their offer something that goes beyond the product, which is likely why we have such a surge in more services and the service economy. This graphic, which is a mix from a couple of books, but essentially the initial origin of that is in the book, The Experience Economy, is showing how we evolved our products into products and services from commodities, and gives a bit of a projection of what could happen next. And I believe there's some companies already out there doing that. We just haven't quite found a name for how this new economy is called. So we start with commodities, just digging the bits and pieces out of the ground sometimes. We eventually turned them into products, sold those products. Eventually we turned the products into services, and then we built bigger experiences around those services, always driving the margins of the market, always driving a new and bigger value in the market. And the next step is very likely to be seen that the next bigger margin sits above the experience. What's above the experience? Well, it's a more complex experience that solves your problem better, maybe to a point where you don't have to engage with it anymore. It works itself in the background and gives you convenience through that. But it's definitely something that is exponentially more valuable than some of the current experiences that we're trying to design and build. So trying to bring a bit of structure into how this maybe could look like as a sketch in a company, and some of the aspects I've been working on projects helping companies change and transform into. So if you look back at the craftswomen of the olden days, they would work very closely with the customer of like, what do you need? Like this and this, in which context? And it would often make a very bespoke solution on that. So the distance between the reality and what was manufactured was pretty much next to each other. With the Industrial Revolution, this started to change. So de-skilling separated the making from the thinking. So you started to have a making layer, you have a smart management, and then eventually some more reality. And in between those layers, you had to translate so that everyone understands what to make. Today, we're looking a little bit into something like that, still very simplified, but you have the reality, someone draws some hypothesis from the reality, somewhere you have departments and different aspects that trying to solve different pieces of the reality. They're all sitting in different kind of silos, and eventually somewhere you have leadership that gets some information from various different points, combines it into some strategy, and tries to push this back into reality. And I think we all know that the silo effect can be very detrimental, because every step of the way you have information and knowledge loss, and you're actually not able to understand a possibly likely very, very complex problem. So innovation, for example, it does not thrive in silos. We sort of all know that, but the question is, what can we do about it? Can we change organizations in a way that this works better? We have, because of all the silos and the different practices now involved in organizations, all the specializations that have been evolved since the Industrial Revolution, we have a lot of different languages. They're not just cultural, they're not just by country, they're actually by practice. Someone might write the word blue, someone might have just the color blue. It's a different means, and it's an abstraction level of trying to do exactly the same thing, and I've been in so many moments where this applied, where I looked at people and it was like, you're saying the same thing, but you're talking a different language. How can we bring these languages back together? So some of the practices I'm looking at the moment are systems thinking, enterprise architecture, business design, change management, service design, transformation. They're all doing the same thing, trying to solve problems. They all speak in different languages, and they have to start bringing this back together. It affects learning. Ernst & Young has looked at the statistic and says the way we learn, because it's also too silent and too much trained towards the factories, is just not efficient in order to prepare someone to be successful in an organization. 70% is in the workplace in that context. So we have to do a lot there too. In the workplace, this is sort of, the reality that we have, the diversity that we actually have, and not just our usual business structure with a couple of departments and that. There's so much complexity going on, which is by itself a wicked problem. How do you get all these people work together and respect each other and be happy together? And there's a lot of new efforts in trying to build new organizations that takes that into account and builds teams very, very differently. Here's some of the some quotes I have from people I interviewed for my book and people I work with. So Rachel Heim over at BT, where I worked for a year, she said, I need more agility for my teams. She has 14,000 developers, and it's really hard for her to spin up a team to throw it at a problem. It's really hard because the organization is too rigid. Tim Carmichael works for the British Army. He was chief data officer. He said, we started to problem solve horizontally. We don't use silos anymore. It has shown to us that this is not the way forward. And that's the military, a very hierarchical organization, telling you that that's not the future anymore. Haley from Airbnb said, our journey is never ending, so we don't even stop. Like, we keep doing these things. We keep mixing up things. We keep thinking, bringing things together, because every time we solve a problem, we have another one. Every time we change and shift a feature on our service, it spawns up new things, new opportunities and new problems. It's banking group, the same thing. We have really complex problems we want to solve. We want to go into problem solving, and it's the biggest task at hand at this point, in this case for a big banking group. So one of the examples I very quickly want to talk about is BT. BT IT in particular is a big company with 14,000 developers and many more people. And I went in there with a team of about 20 people, and we got in there and trained up 200 design thinkers, 4,000 people involved in new ways of working, and managed to, by learning by doing, create 30 services and 14 teams within a year's time in order to massively improve the flexibility that BT itself has. It's been so successful that it's now been rolled out to BT's global services, and they keep growing the amount of people that actually learn from this and actually get involved in these new ways of working. It's been a really great success. And people can do it. People can learn it. I've never worked with so many non-designers in my life, and I have to say it was the best time in my life. And the way we approach this is pretty much this. So you have the reality, you have hypothesis and a problem funnel, and you throw teams at it. And the main thing then to realize is you need to support these teams with all the bits and pieces they need. A team alone cannot solve it by themselves. The support system is really important. So we don't think in departments anymore. We actually dock on and off valuable capabilities and skills that we need on a temporary basis. It's a much more fluent system, and it worked so far really well. So what I'm trying to say here is maybe that the wicked problem solving is a world or a mindset where uncertainty plays a big, big role, and you have to start to become very comfortable with uncertainties. But the second you start stepping in there and you become part of a team like that that has the right support, it actually becomes less scary and it becomes actually fun. And you feel more purpose in your job. And I think there's a lot of value that drives these things that I've seen in projects, and for me, it makes me believe in that wicked problem solving and wicked organizations are the way forward. And that's my story.
Thank you, Mr. Marcus. That was wicked.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, we'd like to see if any of our audiences have questions. Of course, Zain has a question right over here. In the middle. Any more questions after Zain? Over here. All right, great.
Yes, hello. Thank you for the talk. I want to ask, so do you think that the newer generation should start getting into majors that are more for wicked problem solvings? And if so, what are majors and jobs that are for wicked problem solving instead of tame problems? Thank you.
So that's a really interesting question, thank you. So the thing is this, let me give you an example. I believe that roles and job descriptions will become very, very different. A lot of them are very skills-based, and I think that's not the future. They should be outcome-based. Interestingly enough, since I arrived here on Tuesday, I heard from a lot of people here, like, the way we work here at ITHRA is actually, this is my job description, it actually doesn't matter. I have to do a lot of different things. It's much more like a startup, which is really refreshing. And so you actually throw a lot of different pieces of what you know into it, yet your role description is nearly irrelevant, because you work on an outcome, and everyone contributes. So that's one way of looking at the thing. The other thing is also in terms of organization, steps they can take. So I had a chat with Mr. Powell he was the vice president of design over at IBM, and he said they just hired 4,000 new designers globally because they want to become more design-driven. And they found that they actually need to redefine the careers they have for designers and for some developers in order to achieve better results in their outcome-based team. So they embraced it, but they have had to start to look into it. So my recommendation, therefore, would be go into companies, talk to them of what you like to do. I think the right companies will actually listen to you and probably go like, yeah, that's great, we can do something with you here, right? The companies that might be still very classic and are not quite mature for that yet, they will probably not recognize that. I had a lot of conversations, because my background is both in design and technology, where it was like, which one are you? I was like, I'm both. You get both. And it was confusing and it did not work. And those places normally were not that mature to work at. So I would say go to companies you like, see the outcome, what they're producing, and talk to them would be my recommendation.
Okay, great. And we have one more question over here, please, on my left.
Hi there, thanks so much for such an insightful speech. You kind of answered the question that I was going to ask, but it was more around what kind of skills do you look for when you're employing people to kind of tackle these wicked problems, and how does that translate into the recruitment process? Yeah,
so apart from the fact that talking about roles, it's actually that I want to, and whoever company wants to get involved in this, I want to try that as an experiment to actually completely redefine how we describe a role, how we look for a position. Personally, I'm quite lucky. I work with a lot of people. I know a lot of people who generally have a tendency to be quite open in their skill set. So I think the main thing is open mind. You're driven. You're interested because you want to achieve the outcome is probably the simplest answer. And if you want to do that, it gets easily into the area of being an entrepreneur, right? Because entrepreneurs, they want to achieve something, they don't care how they get there. They need to learn something, or they need to get that knowledge in. It doesn't matter, right? So it's that kind of, I think, attitude I'm looking for. I'm a bit lucky in London. There's a fair share of people like that, or people like me tend to find each other eventually. But it's the drive, I think. It's an open mindset, and I think that above everything makes you learn all your life and makes you get there eventually. So that's a great gift to have, or a great skill to learn.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Mr. Marcus, for being with us today. Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
All right. طيب يا جماعة، صراحة سعيد جدا اليوم بحضوركم، بوجود عدد ما شاء الله اليوم كبير. فخلينا نلعب لعبة مع بعض، ايش رأيكم؟ نبي نعرف اللي محاضرين، يعني نسميها لعبة الألعاب. نبي نعرف الحاضرين ايش الألعاب اللي كذا مسكت معاهم في طفولتهم. فحقول ألعاب، وif you played، إذا أنت فعلا لعبتوا اللعبة هذه وأنتم صغار، سووا نويز، يعني صفقوا، سووا أي نويز، فعشان نعرف ونشوف مين الجيل اللي ايش الذهبي اللي متواجد معنا اليوم. طيب مين لعب وهو صغير أتاري؟ نايس. أتاري يد وزرار تضغط ويعلق وما يرجع يطلع مرة ثانية. سيجا. سونيك، فاكرين سونيك؟ مين لعب بيبسي مان؟ والله بيبسي مان عن نهاية الثمانينات صح؟ يعني شيء زي كذا. طيب هذه يمكن الشباب أكثر. ويننج 11. قليل هذول مرة الشاب. كان في حاجة قبل فيفا اسمها ويننج 11، يعني اللي ما يعرف بس يعني. طيب أنجري بيرد. هذه ما لها صلاح بالسن كل أحد. طيب نروح من الديجيتال نروح لألعاب حركية. مين لعب براجون؟ والله كويس، هذه جيل الثمانينات. في الشرقية يسموها تيلا صح؟ فإذا ما كنتوا فاهمين ترى تيلا، مين لعب تيلا؟ الحين كان العدد. طيب مين لعب علبة البيبسي اللي تقلبها؟ نايس. والله هذه برضو مع جيل الثمانينات، اللي هو هذه ألعاب الثمانينات، أو يعني المخضرمين في الثمانينات. طيب مين لعب كمبيوتر العائلة؟ هذا شيء. مين ايش؟ صخر. رحلة إلى مكة. مين لعب رحلة إلى مكة؟ والله مرة هذه شكلها سبعينات هذه ما في. طيب صخر، لعبتوا صخر؟ مين لعب صخر بالعموم؟ والله معلش جيل المخضرمين من السبعينات معلش. ايش؟ فورتنايت. مين لعب فورتنايت؟ يا سلام، في لسه في عدد. طيب مين لعب لعبة حركية اسمها ثلج وموية؟ يا سلام. بالله ما يزعل انه ما عاد صرنا نلعب ثلج وموية؟ يعني لسه تلعب. مين لسه يلعب فريز او ثلج وموية؟ كويس، بس واضح انه انخفض مستوى اللعب عندنا. يعني كلنا مين لعب، كل النويز كان مرة عالية، بعدين لما مين لسه يلعب النويز انخفضت. فاحنا ككبار نحتاج ان نلعب، لا تنسوا هذا الشيء. وهذا تاريخ الألعاب، والألعاب عموما تاريخها يعني قديم وعظيم جدا، يعني يعود إلى آلاف السنين. وخلونا نشوف مع بعض فيديو يتكلم عن رحلة أو تاريخ للألعاب من القرن السادس عشر إلى سنة 2019.
right, so there are many different types of play in games. Some of them are physical and they make us stronger. Others are intellectual and make us more imaginative and creative, right? So there's a form of play called open-ended play, where it ignites your imagination and makes you create new worlds for yourself and for whatever you're playing with. So for instance, creating new characters for your stuffed toys or playing with Legos and building endless forts. But our speaker is going to talk to us about how to unleash that creativity in our brain, which he actually did for himself. And he turned into a scientist, a professor, an executive director, and a consultant. Please, everybody, help me give a warm welcome to Dr. Yazan Hijazi.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Tanween. Hello, Ithra. Hello, Saudi Arabia. Hello, beautiful people. It's such a pleasure to be part of this experience. I mean, I talk about creativity all the time, but just coming to this building gets you more creative. So I really want to sell my talk, but I'd like to do a caveat first and tell you that creativity, innovation, yes, they're very important. They've become buzzwords of today. However, creativity and innovation are nothing new. They have sustained human development and human progress throughout time. In my career, I have met a lot of great creators, innovators, entrepreneurs. And let me tell you, one of the most outstanding innovators I know is my mother. And she's a housewife. So creativity and innovation is not rocket science, as you will see today. So who's bored of the statement, think outside the box? I mean, how many times do you hear that? I hear it in board meetings, and lately I get into my Uber, and the Uber driver's telling me, man, you have to think outside the box. And you know what happens when you tell people, think outside the box? You're looking at it. Nothing. Nothing happens. At best, you may get some mediocre ideas. So by the end of my talk, hopefully we'll change some perspective on this overused cliche, think outside the box. Let me first start by asking everybody a question. And yes, I'm talking to you. Who here feels they are creative? So kind of raise your hands. Fantastic. That's the Tanween effect. Who doesn't? Who doesn't? Just usually it's all the people that didn't raise their hands, you know. It's an interesting thing when I ask this question. I'm going to ask you another question. Who here feels that their 7-year-old child, or when they were 5, were creative? Who was creative when they were a kid? Almost everywhere in the world, I travel and I talk to people about creativity, I get the same response. So around 15, 20% of people, they're super sure they are creative. Some are kind of, yeah, I think I'm creative. And then the rest cast themselves to the realm of the non-creatives. And when you ask people, were you creative when you were 5, when you were 7? Everybody can resonate with that. Now, what is happening here? Let me share with you a study by NASA. So NASA did a study, specifically Dr. George Land, to measure creativity in kids. This study was so successful that they transformed it into a longitudinal study, where they ended up measuring 280,000 adults. This is what they found. At age 5, 98% of kids measure not creative, at genius level of creative. At age 10, that drops to 30%. Wow, that's a huge drop. At age 12, just about to be a teenager, that drops to around 12%. Now, there's one more data point that's hidden here, and this is for us, the adults. So I'm gonna give you a couple of options. What do you think the percentage is for adults? I'll give you 3 choices. Is it 9, 7, or 4? It's 2. I kind of tricked you, and this is to show that what actually happens between age 5 and when we become adults. We go to a very special place that is called school. School, we go to school. Now, interestingly, the way I framed the question, I didn't give you the answer, but we are programmed, we are conditioned to never question the question. We go to school, and it does a great job at feeding us information and knowledge, but not so much at nurturing our individuality, our sense of expression. You are told to answer the question, not ask powerful questions. Well, what we need in today's world is people who ask powerful questions before we start jumping into solution mode and solution finding. If you ask your friend what the answer is in school, that is called cheating. But in the entrepreneurial world, that is called collaboration. So something is off, and just by bringing in some iPads and some smart boards doesn't mean that education is transforming. There are some really promising hotspots of innovative approaches all around the world. But for the most part, education is producing conformity and standardization. There's an excellent video for Sarah Ken Robinson on YouTube that talks about that, and it's called Schools Kill Creativity. There's one idea that you can leave my talk with. It would be the following, that creativity is an intelligence. Creativity is a process. You do not acquire intelligence, you have intelligence. Everybody resonated with the fact that they were creative when they were young. We intuitively know we're born creative, but something happens and our conditioning kind of squeezes creativity out of us. But we can regain that back. We can definitely regain that back. Now, I don't want you to think of creativity as some sort of a special skill for a special place. Creativity is like flour. You cook and you put flour everywhere and you'll get something cool. So it's an all-purpose life skill. You can use it definitely in your work, and more in today's world, we need people who are creative, who are not just knowledge workers, who can manipulate knowledge and put it to various uses creatively. So this is like having a master key that can open so many doors for you, whether you're advancing your career or whether you're planning your next vacation or pondering the poem you want to write to your loved ones. Creativity comes into play. Creativity is about you, because we need more creative people to create a better world. Yes, on some respects we're doing a great job, and on many, needless to say, we're not. So instead of just thinking about creativity as something that is out there, embrace your own creativity and use creativity to find your extraordinary. If we're going to dream big. If you're going to do something, you want to push your envelope. You want to get out of your comfort zone. We all have more of the same and the me toos. We don't want that. We want you to lead. We want you to create and find your extraordinary. There's 3 talking points I'm going to kind of touch upon. One is demystifying creativity, and briefly talk about this new paradigm and why creativity is imperative, and then I'll leave you with one hack to really unbox and supercharge your creativity. I'd like everyone to take 5 seconds to draw a chair in their mind. Draw a chair in your mind, visualize it. Did your chair look like this? Great, I love the no answers, I heard a no from backstage. So, for most people, a chair is a 4-legged object that you sit on. And that's what people usually get. But why didn't your chair look like this? Or like this? Or like that? Like this, the coconut chair? Like this, which you feel like you want to dive into it? Or like that? Now, it's not your fault. What happens is that we have what we call inertia. Our mind likes to go for the familiar. It's stereotyping, and it's great for navigating the world. If you see a chair that you've never seen before, you don't want to kind of think, oh, what the hell is this object? You want to take it and put it in a category of chairs. So this is great for navigating three-dimensional reality, but it's horrible for creativity. So there you have it, the first kind of clue. By going out of the familiar, we can be creative. So what is creativity? The worst thing we can do for creativity is to define it. I always say to define is to confine, especially when we're talking about such subjective matters. So if you want to define friendship, you can't. Define love. You can write volumes of books around it, but you don't want to put it in a box. Better kind of describe it. Now, let's get this out of the way because people throw creativity and innovation in the same conversation. Yes, both are a fruit. However, they're not the same. They are a process. Creativity and innovation are a process. The best way to think about it is that if innovation is an engine, creativity is the fuel. If innovation is a fire, creativity is the wood. Okay, so that's the relationship between the two. Creativity is bringing ideas together, combining them in new ways. So don't be afraid to copy and adapt and bring from here and there, okay? And the more unexpected those connections are, the more creative things become. So this is a cool example of a company, a startup called Pigeon Patrol. They monitor air quality, and this is a high-tech device that monitors air quality. And you think, yeah, now we have drones, we can fly it in the sky. But by combining something very traditional, a pigeon, and this new technology, we got something more unique, okay? So it's also about going back to simplicity. This is a fine example of creativity, and you might like this example more or less depending on how hungry you are. But this is the croissant burger. You bring a croissant and a burger, you put it together, and you get something new. So creativity is about playing with ideas. Also, creativity is about taking risk. If you want cheese, you gotta go for it. But you see that this mouse is wearing a helmet, so it's about calculated risk. It's not about putting it all out there, you know? It's about understanding that creativity requires you to experiment, and experimentation requires you to, I don't wanna say fail, I wanna say learn, because there is no failure, there's only feedback, there's only learning. We could say that creativity is the ability to be different, but in a useful way. Okay? In a useful way, because in the context of business, we just don't want to be different. We also want to be useful. A lot of people say we shouldn't measure creativity. We should measure creativity, especially in a context of developing ideas and solutions. How are we going to solve tame and wicked problems like Marcus was talking about? Well, you need to evaluate ideas. I'll give you 3 important metrics. 1 is originality. Is this thing original? 2, is it useful? And 3, and very importantly, you know, there's something visceral about creativity. When you go to the mall and you buy something, you most likely bought that in your gut, emotionally. Then your brain comes and starts analyzing and justifying your decision. However, we need a 3rd metric, a criteria, and I call that the wow factor. So you can use this in a table to evaluate idea 1 to 5 and say, from 1 to 5, how original, how useful, how wow is this element? You can add other metrics by saying, okay, cost could be a metric, difficulty could be a metric, time could be a metric. So it's important to measure creativity. Back to the chair. This chair is original, but it's not useful as a chair. And this brings me to the notion of art, because this looks like it should be in Tanween, right? Kind of like a weird-looking chair. So art has a utility as well. But we're not specifically talking about art, we're talking about creativity in general. But art's function is to provoke you, to get you to ask questions, or simply to entertain, or to serve a social purpose. So even art has some utility. Okay, so why now? Everybody is also tired of hearing about the 4th Industrial Revolution, الثورة الصناعية الرابعة. And it's become such a buzzword, yeah? But 2 interesting things about the 4th Industrial Revolution. First, it's the first time that it combines the biological, the physical, and the virtual world together. So it's not far-fetched that some of you are wearing lenses right now that have an augmented reality and you're pulling up information on me and you're getting data on me. This is not science fiction anymore. The best way to think about artificial intelligence is a marriage, because no matter how smart machines can get, and trust me, I'm a technical guy, artificial intelligence is still a fancy word to say instructions, coding, programming. But artificial intelligence will never double for the human imagination, the human ingenuity, or the depth of the human heart. So better see it as a marriage. Now, the other interesting thing is the rate of change. We always say change is the only constant. However, turns out that change is not a constant. Change is a variable. It's changing. So this shows 4 curves: technology, individuals, businesses, and public policy. And what you see is that this change is exponential. What is exponential change? Thought experiment. If I take 30 linear steps on the stage, I would have walked roughly 30 meters. If we take 30 exponential steps, how many meters do you think we would get to? So I learned yesterday that there's around 700 kilometers of pipes around the ISRA building. Do you think it's more or less? It's a lot more. And this is not a trick question, this is a mathematical question. 2 to the 30 gives you a very huge number that takes you 25 times around the planet. That's the rate of change that we're experiencing. Your phone last year had half the capacity, half the speed. Your phone next year will have double the capacity, double the speed. So in a world that's fastly changing, your best weapon is to adapt. Creative adaptation is key to survive and succeed. How do we reawaken the sense of magic? How do we reawaken the sense of wonder, the curiosity, and play? So start with, how do we move from a square wheel model to something fast, furious? First, foremost, have fun. So creativity does not happen in a rigid environment. You need to take yourself less seriously. Let's talk about serious play. Okay, so it's important. I always tell people, if you think or if you start thinking that what you're doing is super, super, super important, that's the time you need to take a break and take a vacation, okay? Get some perspective. The other is the possibility mindset. This is your ability to imagine alternatives, to play with things, to be adaptive, to bend the rules, play with the rules, sometimes break the rules. So have a growth mindset, have a mindset of possibility. Let me share with you this one hack to supercharge your creativity. Remember the box? So what is the problem with the box? Apart from the fact that it's a cliche, overused, and it produces very mediocre results. Well, for first, it assumes that inspiration comes from outside, not from inside. So you're better off standing next to a window or holding an antenna and wait for inspiration to come. That's the first thing. Second, I'm sorry to tell you, but you have a box. I have a box. Everybody has a box, and our boxes are what we believe about the world. They are our worldview. If you wear orange glasses, everything will look orange. So instead of talking about outside the box, let's examine the box. How do you unbox your thinking? Very simple shift of perspective. Instead of looking outside the box, let's take a look at the box itself. Every problem has boundaries. Every problem has assumptions. Every problem has underneath it beliefs that may be obvious or maybe not so obvious. And it has expectations. Let me give you a simple example that you might have seen here at Tanween. And if you didn't, please go see it. The dining in the dark experience. So the dining in the dark experience assumes that I should see my food. Now, just by changing that assumption, what if we create a dining experience where you don't see your food? Let's actually take that even further. Any restaurant, let's create the unboxed restaurant. You go to a restaurant and you assume there's a waiter and you ask him to sit you down. Well, this waiter sees you, puts you to sit down with people that you don't know, and you ask for a menu, no menu comes. The chef comes out, asks you a couple questions about your horoscope, color you like, whether you like the sea or the mountains, and if you have any food allergies, and tells you, I know the perfect dish for you. You're gonna love it. Takes you back and cooks the food with you so you can learn a little bit about cooking. You come back, share it with these people, and then when you ask for the bill, there's no bill. They tell you, pay what you think the food is worth. So kind of like the honor system. And by the way, surprisingly, people end up overpaying when you do that. So just by taking a problem, any context, and saying, what is the box? How can we expand the box? How can we bring two boxes together? What are the assumptions, beliefs, and expectations that surround this problem? And by breaking those, you're much more likely to come up with creative, innovative, and impactful solutions. So the world needs you to be creative. And if you're not, then you may risk becoming irrelevant, because knowledge is everywhere. And disruption is not going to come from Jeddah or Riyadh. Disruption might come from a 13-year-old kid in Bhutan that just came up with a new business model. So take that seriously and seriously play with it. The choice is yours. And I'll just remind you that to create is to be human. It is our very nature to be creative. Embrace that. If you don't, it's like having a piano and you're only playing with 3 keys. Or having a very nice Ferrari, but you never get past second gear. Thank you very much for listening and for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yazan, for demystifying what creativity is for us. I'm sure that's going to be very helpful for a lot of us. So if we have any questions from the audience.
Don't be shy.
Yeah, we have one question here. Okay, there's one all the way up there. And then where's the other one? All right, let's start with over here, all the way up top.
Dr. Yazan, thank you so much for the very inspiring presentation. I think the demystifying of it was brilliant and creative. So the question is, why do we need to finish school and then to have all the sciences and so on to open up the creativity again? And then from there start coming up with the new solutions, reignite your creativity and so on. While I think that this should be embedded in the educational system, and isn't that an invitation to disrupt our current education system, since it just produces the same results as the machine that you've shown earlier?
That's a very good question.
Thank you for your question. I think education is being disrupted, and I think there's a lot of room for transforming education. You can either, but for the most part, I think educational models and systems are playing catch up. It's still a first industrial revolution system that we're trying to kind of get to fit into the modern world. What I would say is that creativity is about expression. So there is no ideal form of expression. So by nurturing and creating safe environments for our kids, and even for employees to express themselves and to experiment, you start nurturing that creativity. Because every person is different and unique. And you can't simply teach creativity, but you can create a safe environment where creativity can flourish. I am all for supporting creativity and integrating it into all curricula. And there's a lot of ideas that we can use to actually stimulate that. And I'd be happy to discuss those with you maybe after the show. But this is a topic that we can spend lots of time talking about. But essentially, we need to create safety around expression. Psychological safety is the most important thing in teams for them to be creative and for them to be high performance. Not team building, psychological safety, which is the idea that I can take interpersonal risk with my teammates. I can show up authentically in how I am to work. And that just changes the entire ballgame, because then people will engage, will experiment, will play, and will express themselves in new ways.
All right, great. So do we have another question? All right. So can you elaborate more of what are the psychological benefits of expressing yourself more? Does that nurture creativity?
Yeah, I mean, of course. there's the personal aspect of it, and then there's the business aspect of it, you know. For example, entrepreneurs. It's no longer sufficient to come up with one creative idea or one innovation. You need to continuously be innovating and iterating, and your business model needs to be continuously evolving and breathing. Otherwise, somebody will come beat you to it. So there are many tactics that you can use to express yourself in new ways that you can do on a daily basis, you know. Brush your teeth with your left hand or your other hand. Come up with random words that you know. Say one word and come up with 5 random words. Take a different route to school or to work. So it's about going off the traditional conformist path. And that, one, it gives you a sense of fulfillment as well. So as you express yourself, you feel more human and you feel more alive. And that by itself is great.
For sure. All right, thank you so much, Dr. Yazan.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
All right. Play takes different shapes and sizes. As well, creativity takes different shape and sizes. And as we just learned from Dr. Yazan Hijazi, that creativity is not limited to entertainment or music or art, for example. Creativity and play can be also involved in science as well, which is the field of our next speaker. He is a professor at KAUST, and he has done research in geoengineering and deep mining that were summarized in 2 books and more than 300 publications. Let's put all our hands together to Dr. J. Carlos Santamarina.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, folks, we heard such a wonderful presentation from the previous 2 speakers, and in fact, Yazan pretty much introduced many of the concepts that I'm going to talk about. You realize that creativity is such an ethereal word, and it's so difficult to define. It is so intangible that sometimes we say, oh, Mary is creative, and that's good, but we say, ooh, Johnny is very creative. That sometimes means that he's a weirdo. And so we really cannot define it well. We really don't understand how it happens. But it's almost like love. Yazan also mentioned the same metaphor. But we know when it happens. And furthermore, we know some of the factors that can affect it positively and some of those that are going to hinder it. And that's basically what I would like to accomplish here today with you. Let's see if we can come up with an equation for creativity. Because if we understand what are the factors involved in creativity, we may be able to educate better and to manage our lives to remain more creative. So that's the goal. And the goal is also not to demystify it. So let's start with some of the slides. You know, for centuries, we have been thinking that creativity is always emerges in times of crisis or when there is anguish. And that has gone from Plato to Einstein and is universal throughout our history. And in fact, there are plenty of needs today in the world. From a human personal point of view, we would like to be all we can be. From a societal point of view, folks, we're facing huge problems. We have all the issues related to population growth, inequality around the world, the consequences of energy and the environment. In fact, here today we sit at the top of the dome of the largest oil field in the world. I mean, we are today here, geographically speaking, we are in such a unique place in the world. However, oil, and Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabia of oil, started with your grandparents and will finish with your grandchildren. So yes, we have a crisis, and we have a sense of urgency. And so what are we going to do about it? Look, I think of creativity as one of those manifestations of human spirit among people who really excel. And we have so many examples today. We have the audacious architects. We have Jane Goodall, who spent her life trying to understand chimpanzees. We have Einstein, who made a revolution from Newtonian mechanics to today's world that actually GPS exists because of him, and so many other things. And we saw last week, as the first speaker told us, that finally a person has run the marathon in less than 2 hours. All these are examples of excellence. And there are common characteristics in excellence, the Pavarottis of the world, the great painters of the world. And so what are those common characteristics is part of the goals that I would like to discover. And I have to say that sports give us magnificent examples and so many lessons that if you remember nothing from today's presentation, just remember to watch sports with a thoughtful eye, because there are so many lessons to be learned. I will try to walk through some of them today with you. So look at that. On the left-hand side, you have the young and upcoming stars. On the right-hand side, you have those who, under all expectations, they are post-peak. But there it is, Messi playing exceptional soccer still today, even though the peak for soccer may be in the mid-20s. And you have Serena Williams, who is playing wonderful tennis, probably 15 years older than the peak in tennis. So some people remain exceptional, and you can think of Federer and Nadal. Some people remain exceptional for many more years beyond what society expects. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that there is a peak in time in our lifetime for creativity. Now, whenever you see a curve like that goes up and down, you have to think, what makes it go up and what makes it come down? So there have to be behind this curve, there have to be two big forces. And so in the case of sports, how come Johnny is not a Messi when he's 5 years old? Well, because at 5 years old, he doesn't have the height, the strength, the ability, the knowledge of the game, the love for the game. Johnny is not going to play like Messi at 5 years old. But on the other hand, as we get older, well, we're beginning to lose ability. Our machine has its limits. And at the same time, we get more prone to injuries. But folks, overriding all this, and so that is the one that caused the tail to come down. But on top of all this, there are the exceptional individuals who love the game. Exceptional individuals who go the extra mile. And by the way, we see these people excelling, and we see, wow, how good they are because we see them for 90 minutes. But what we don't see that behind that, there are long days, long weeks, full year of demanding exercise and pushing the limits. This is common to all fields. Whoever excels goes to that. Look, we see a similar curve for great civil engineering projects. This is the age where most civil engineers do the greatest projects, and architects in the mid-40s to early 50s. We see the same in the arts. This is the age for movie directors nominated for the Oscars for the last 100+ years, in the 40s to early 50s. Once again, there has to be a force that pushes up and another one that brings them down. Look at the master painters. There is also a curve, but I would like to point something here. Oops, not that one. Okay. I would like to, I'm not quite sure you can see, it's not just a single hump. There is a long tail that comes here. There is what in endurance marathons they call the second wind. And probably we should pay attention. And there is a big point here that I have avoided with the shaded trend, because that is Van Gogh. And Van Gogh, who did more than 2,000 artwork in just 10 years, died very young. But he had a humongous spike, as you see in the next plot, where we see the contributions, the creative artistic contributions of some of the great masters of all time. And there is Van Gogh There you see his great peak before the age of 37 when he died. But then you have Renoir. And Renoir, in fact, had so much arthritis that he had a helper to tie the brush to his hands every day so he could begin painting. That's the way Renoir painted the last decade of his life. And then you have, for example, let's see, who is another long-lasting here? Monet. Monet couldn't see anymore, and so there is a drop in some of his contributions by the time he's around 60. He couldn't see anymore because of cataracts. So he took the risk of going through an operation, but then he couldn't see colors anymore. So you can see the later years of Monet's paintings, they have different colors because he couldn't perceive red, I think, anymore. But the passion was there, and the drive was there, and he continued until the last moment in his life. Well, so now I hope I have convinced you that statistically speaking, there is a time for creation, for creative contributions, and now the same as in sports, there has to be something that goes up. We cannot be creative in the vacuum. Wonderful data from the NASA project, but what is the meaning of those little kids at 5 performing at genius level? I mean, there is a mental neural ductility which is exceptional in little kids. They can spell backwards and forwards at the same speed. I try with my own kids. But without knowledge, can we really have great contributions? So it needs knowledge, folks. It needs knowledge. We have to go to school. We have to have less constraining schools. We don't want schools that conform, that create, that have a rigid mold. But we have to learn. We have to learn every single day of our lives for the rest of our lives. But yes, processing ability decreases. If you are hitting my age, or if you are young, talk to your grandparents. It takes them a few minutes to remember the name of the cousin. It does happen, so we connect slower. But there are a few advantages in getting old. Now, the problem is the health. Health is going to catch up because the machine is made for so many years. And so by the time 50, 60, etc., health begins catching up, and that clearly is the major reason to come down. But the same as in sports, there is something that rides on top of all this. And we wonder, what was that for intellectual contributions? And so we asked people, and we created a database, about 500 entries. We asked people, what is more important for impact? Is it intellectual potential, IQ? Is it social ability, how well you relate to others? Is it focused dedication? What would you say? Which of these three is the most important for impact? This is the answer. The equation, I told you that I promised an equation. There is the equation. It's all about 10% intelligence, or IQ. Just 10%. 10% social skills. Oops, sorry. 10% social skills. Just 10%. I mean, don't be a jerk. But just 10%. Everything is about dedication, focused dedication, loving what you do, committing your life long to your goals and tasks. Dedication, the same as in sports, emerges here in intellectual goals. They're having a purpose, persistence. Now, I know that this is very small. I did it on purpose because I actually could have put hundreds of quotes from sports. And I went through the lives of many of our athletes, and I began picking up quotes, and they all converge to the same. Let's read some of them. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Folks, that's it. I hope you were born with talent, but you have to work hard. Most people never run far enough to find out that they have a second wind. We just give up in our 40s, or there is a possibility for more humps in our lives. Winners never quit, and quitters never win. And then another one from Argentina. I'm from Argentina, by the way, so you saw Messi. Here's the other one, the other great one, Maradona, yeah. And so Maradona said, luck has nothing to do with success. Excellence is a habit. And finally, from the great basketball player, Michael Jordan, some people want it to happen, some wish it would happen, but those who make the difference are the others who actually make it happen. Let's join that team. Now, I also notice, I keep thinking, I look back and I look at cases and friends and people I know who have succeeded and those who didn't, and I keep looking for data, and I notice that the environment is important. It's like having a plant. You need the right dirt for a given plant, right? Look at this. Coutinho, flourished in Liverpool, did poor in Barcelona. Neymar, flourished in Barcelona, did poor in Paris Saint-Germain. Messi is magical in Barcelona. He's quite questionable, to say the least, in Argentina. So if your environment is not fitting you, it's not allowing you to be all you can be, change the environment, be part of the change, or probably it's time to move. And the same happens in intellectual pursuits. Take a look at these universities. These are the universities that have produced the largest numbers of Nobel Prizes. Harvard, Cambridge, Berkeley, Chicago, Columbia, MIT, Stanford, Caltech, Oxford. There has to be something that makes the alma mater matter. The last one I would like, the last ingredient in this soup that we're making, in the theory of creativity is, I've been observing many people looking back that they reinvented themselves over and over again. Case in point, Picasso. Picasso produced more than 13,000 artwork. And this is actually, I plotted every single one of them, and this is the peaks. And for every peak, there is a new style. That was the initial, the classic, the academic, the blue style, the cubism, the neoclassic, the surrealism, and then he began mixing all the previous ones. And by the way, there are a couple of rows and all that. And look at the changes in style, the classic to the blue, to the cubism, to the surrealism. Picasso reinvented himself every 7 years, give or take. And he worked until the last year of his life when he was 93. We also see it in academia. In academia, it's wonderful because we have very easy data. It's called Google Scholar. You can Google anybody and find all his productivities or her productivities. And these are individuals who are reinventing themselves. This is their annual productivity. And this is the overall reputation. Create to become. So now we have a theory, folks. And this is it. We need knowledge to be creative, to construct this world, to solve the greatest problems that humanity faces nowadays. And we have to be careful because our processing ability decays and our health decays with time. But if we have a purpose, if we have a will, if we have a focused dedication, determination, persistence, if we are willing and taking to take the risk to reinvent ourselves, now something magical happens. Knowledge keeps increasing. It doesn't asymptote. And the processing ability doesn't decay so fast because the brain is like our muscles. We keep exercising them. And then when those two curves go up, look what happens to the creative productivity. The curve gets wider, and you may give it enough of a time and a chance to have a second wind. I would like to conclude with 2 or 3 more slides to highlight the fact that we don't live in isolation, and we are part of a whole network that makes society work. And that is similar to bees building the honeycomb. What a beautiful, amazing structure, with all the little hexagons, one next to the other, perfect in size, optimally designed, by the way, a master engineer. And by the way, each bee is so stupid. It's the collection of bees that becomes so intelligent, so optimal. And we've done the same in so many examples. Nowadays, thanks to communications and the facility of communications and the internet, Wikipedia being an exceptional case. People contributing from all over the world, we have built the best encyclopedia that has ever existed. I used to think that Encyclopedia Britannica was my dream. Well, it became obsolete soon after Wikipedia emerged. That is, people from all over the world coming together for a common goal. Imagine what we can do in the context of energy, in the context of the environment, in the context of inequality, culture, global peace, water, education, if we come together. Wikipedia is just a micro example of this potential. And so how do we build a great team? The movie Moneyball showed that here was this manager for a baseball team, a manager that was making the wrong choices, and so this young fellow from Yale School of Economics said, you know, you're making the wrong choices, man. I have a program that is beginning to look at some of the statistics, and you don't go for the big names. Go for some of the guys that are the ones you need, that have the skills that you need, and by the way, they are cheap. And so he did, and then the Oakland Athletics won the series, etc. It was a tremendous success that has been copied over and over throughout baseball and all sports, Liverpool included lately. And that is the origin of sports analytics. But it's not just recognizing the talent and purchasing talent or bringing it to the team. Here are two examples. This is the Argentinian national team. Must be the team in the world with the largest number of players in Major League Football. And the other one is the Iceland national team. The coach works part-time as a dentist. The goalkeeper is an actor. I think that they have only one player in the Major League club, and they keep winning and winning. What is it that makes a team great? It is not having the people with the best IQ. It is not having the individual with the best IQ, let's say the Messi. It is having a team of good people that are working together with a team spirit and that respect each other. And then you can go back and read the history of the coaches. Coaches weren't so important until the 1950s, by the way. And then coaches all of a sudden have become such a great public figures. But go and read the stories of great coaches and what they said. And yes, recognize talent. Train people to reduce their weaknesses, but then let them play with their strengths. It's something that we should do more in education. Empower players. Know the game. Live for it. Love it. Have a plan, but conceive alternatives. Demand, motivate, inspire, and be humble. Lessons from great coaches. Well, I think that we've come to the end. Innovation, creativity is needed in time of crisis, and we all live in some form of challenges continuously, from the personal, the social, today the global challenges. And yes, there is almost, we don't know what it is, but we can almost come up with a formula. We need knowledge. We need to keep up our intellectual agility. But we need to love what we do. We need to dedicate ourselves with persistence, with total commitment. And let's build great teams, because the problems that we are facing today are unprecedented. Folks, if you haven't visited yet, Georgia Tech, this is a sunset. Georgia Tech, no. This is a sunset from Coast. So if you haven't been on the west side of the kingdom, it's time for you to go and visit. It's an amazing place. It's a privilege to be part of Coast. And there is a little bit of a demonstration here, so go and visit. But take-home message, life is an endurance game. There is no difference to any other aspects of sports. So let's go and excel. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. J. Carlos, for that insightful talk. Are you a football fan? Are you a football fan?
I know so little about sports.
But it's obvious that you know so much more.
No, I can follow.
Okay, great. So we have room for one question, if we have any questions in the audience.
Not about sports.
I see a hand over there on top.
Hi, guys.
All right, there we go. Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Carlos. A very inspiring speech. I have a question because I just recently read Adam Grant's book, and he talks about genius coming in either very early or very late. And it's either very early because we still don't know the boundaries of the sciences or whatever we want to achieve. And that's why we think outside the box.
Yeah.
The other one is where we're actually building on a foundation, of a lifetime, and we kind of have a breakthrough at the end. Whereas what you showed was, the peak in the middle. How can we consolidate those two models? Thank you.
Lovely question. So whenever we do these studies, there are two ways to approach them. One, we take an individual and we follow that individual through life. Or the other one, we stop right now and I make an assessment of all of you here and I plot that assessment versus age. And so these are called longitudinal and cross-sectional studies. Whenever I show the humps, these are statistical averages for cross-sections. And so there are two things. One is to look at society as a whole, and we do this statistical analysis, and then to look at the individuals, and both of them are insightful in their own ways. For example, an important lesson to learn from the longitudinal analysis, I mean tracking one individual, like we did with Picasso, for example, is that exceptional individuals, almost like sports, like Serena Williams and Federer, etc., exceptional individuals tend to have lifelong contributions. And they tend to decay much less than these average statistical trends. So there are things that we should learn from both of them. But by the way, there are several books that address the life of geniuses, and one of the things that you learn right away is that it's not easy to be a genius, even if you are, but coping with all the social pressures, etc. But probably this presentation was not about genius. This was about the majority of us. And then what can we do to keep up with our intellectual stimulation to be all we can be?
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. J. Carlos, for being with us today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
السلام عليكم. كيف الانرجي؟ كيف الطاقة؟ How's your energy؟ يقولوا يا سلام. يقولوا حاسس إن يبغى لنا شوية بوست كذا بسيطة. يقولوا النويز ترفع الانرجي. Do you agree with that؟ طب خلينا نجرب لعبة أو حاجة نسوي نويز منظم. حلو الاسم كيف؟ everyone تعرفوا تصفقوا صح؟ طيب خلينا نسوي صفقة منظمة تمام؟ anyone يعني انتوا سكاوتينج وسكاوت وكشافة وكذا؟ كان عندهم سكاوت they have like those يعني الصفقات المنظمة. خلينا أقول لكم في صفقة كانت كذا مرة منظمة خلينا نسويها مع بعض. simply زي كذا. 1 2 3 تمام؟ فأنا هي 1 2 3 خلينا نسويها مع بعض أوكي؟ هي يسموها صفقة ثلاثية مع بعض نسويها مع بعض 1 2 3 لقط معظمكم جابها بس one more time خلوكم معايا. الثالثة زي كذا لا تسووها خلونا أسويها لحالي خلونا أسويها تمام؟ بس مع بعض حتكون مرة حماس تمام؟ we'll do it 2 rounds جاهزين؟ يلا 1 2 3 one more round last one يا سلام يعطيكم العافية نايس كذا بس نبغى نطلع الانرجي. الفقرة الجاية المفروض أصلا تنشط لكم الدورة الدموية ونجهز لكم، قلت بس نبى نجهز المسرح للنكست سبيكر أو الفقرة الجاية. ضيفنا في الفقرة الجاية جايكم all the way من جدة، تمام؟ وهو كوميديان حيسوي فقرة ستاند كوميدي، فرحبوا معانا بنجم الكوميدي كلاب شاكر الشريف.
السلام عليكم. ايش هذا؟ ايش الجمال هذا؟ تحية لنفسكم بالله يا جماعة. الله، شكلكم كذا وفي فراغات في الكرسي كأني طالع في راسي، سبحان الله. فين بقية الناس؟ هي مشكلة والله، مشكلة. كيف حالكم؟ طيبين؟ معكم شاكر الشريف من مكة. ايوه، لي الشرف اني اكون بوسطكم صراحة، وقالوا لي تعال هنا واخذوا لي طيارة طبعا عشان اوصل، بس يعني لما ركبت الطيارة كنت متفاجئ انه ركبت في الكرسي، يعني الكرسي جاء علي. لانه قبل 30 كيلو كان الوضع صعب شوية، فاهم؟ اللي هو لازم اشيل معايا كريم فازلين كل مرة اطلع الطيارة، لانه لما اجي مثلا اطلع الكرسي صغير، كرسي صغير، قد لبست جزمة ضيقة بدون شراب نفس الاحساس، ترى اللي بعد ما تفسخها تلقى خط احمر في رجلك، نفس الاحساس. اللي قبل لا نطلع الطياره تسمع الكابتن يقول لك اعزائي، عمري ما افهم الكابتن ايش يقول، قد عمره احد يعرف الكابتن ايش يقول، ما حد، كلنا نجامل ونسكت، نسوي ونسلك انه احنا قاعدين نعرف هو ايش قاعد يقول. الخطوط السعوديه فالوضع صعب شويه ومتأزم. انا عمري ما سمعت ايش هو ايش قاعد يقول، فقاعد يقول اركب الحزام مدري، فقاعد اشوف التنبيهات دي حقت اللي عمري ما سمعتها في حياتي. اليوم انتبهت لها، يقول لك اترك كل شيء خلفك. طيب شويه طالع في الفيديو اشوف واحد متزحلق مع بنته. طب انت قلت اترك كل شيء خلفك، ليش شايل البنت معك؟ بعدين في كان جنبي واحد متين امتن مني بزياده، يعني ماخذ كرسيين هو لوحده، فشاف يقول لك تحت الكرسي في حق الامان، طالع فيها دمع. قال لي تكفى يا ابن الناس، لو صار شيء اسحب لي هي من تحت. قلت له ابشر، بس انت تعرف تصفر؟ لاني ماني عارف ايش فائده الصفيره ذي اللي في الجهاز، تعرف لما تسحب ويتنفخ؟ الحين انت في البحر، طاحت الطياره لا سمح الله، انت في البحر، طيب ايش فائده الصفيره؟ فائده واحده بس، القروش يجوا. دب 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 دب. ترى ما في اي فائده في الموضوع. والمتين يعاني كمان، يعني المتين لما يجي يروح الحمام الله يكرمكم حق الطياره مو زي النحيف، النحيف يقلبها فاشن شو. قد حضرت فاشن شو؟ يديك اللي هي انا رايح الحمام. المتين يعاني، المتين مسكين عشانه متين كذا يحجزوا له ثالث كرسي فيه اثنين، فيضطر يوقف، راسه يصقع في الشباك، يجي يخرج. الحين الزقاق حق الطياره هذا مره ضيق، فيضطر يديها مشية ابو مقص، تعرفوها؟ اللي هو لو سمح اديها، لو سمحت يا محمد، يا محمد لو سمح محمد. وينحشر مسكين يروح لين المطبخ، بعدين يدق الريوس كذا هو في الحمام ذا. الحمام مره صغير، فهم عارفين انه انت دبه حتخش الحمام ذا، حاطين لك الباب زي كذا، فقوم يسوي حط كرشك وقفل الباب كذا. ما في حركتين، الحركه الاولى الحركه الثانيه، تلف تفتح ترجع ثاني مره، لو سمحت يا محمد يا محمد. ايه فالوضع صعب. انا شايف دحين عشان كذا نحفت، مو عشان حاجه، عشان طفرت شويه ما في فلوس، فلازم اركب ايكونومي بزنس كلاس. ما فلوس. في ناس جوب باص فما فاهمين المعنى. هذه المشكله الاولى. المشكله الثانيه الصلع. مين مصلع هنا؟ فين؟ ليش هنا واحد وهنا الثاني، شوف هناك الثالث. مشكله. متى طاح شعرك؟ تتذكر متى طاح شعرك؟ ها؟ اول ما دخلت الجامعه، مو قبل مو بعد. كنت تحب قبلها ولا ايش؟ لأنه الحب هو الشيء الوحيد اللي يطيع الشعر. حب الأكل وحب الحياة والأشياء هذه. أنا كنت كدش، فأبويا شافني في البيت قال لي أنا فهمت إيش يبغى، ما احتاج يتكلم. رحت الحلاق حلقته ما طلع من الجنب بس، اللي في النص بطل، راح في ظهري. فظهري ذحين مليان شعر. تعرف ايش الهوايه حقتي؟ امشط شعر ظهري، اسوي انجل. تعرف انجل بس شعر. وحش الشعر، عرفت هذيل؟ جربها حلوه ترى. انا عارف انه عندك شعر في ظهرك، لما تقشعر تشق الفنيله صح؟ لما تسمع اغنيه حلوه كذا علموا تقشعر تصير قنفذ. ها ناشونال جيوغرافيكس يطلع فجاه في الركن. يا الله، من يتذكر ايام زمان لما كنا نلعب غميضه؟ من يعرف العاب الغميضه؟ 10 طش 2 طش 3 طش، تعرفوها؟ انا صغير كنت العبها مع بنات خالتي وعيال خالتي، فكنت اعد 10 طش 2 طش 3 طش 4 طش 5 طش، ما في احد. رجعت البيت قلت امي شفتي بنات خالاتي؟ ايوه. فينهم؟ خلاص كبروا. لا فينهم؟ خلاص غطوا عليك. لا امي بنات خالي. لا ما في، خلاص اختفوا. العابنا كانت غريبه. الحين يلعبوا بلاي ستيشن ببجي ومدري يقعدوا يطخطخوا، احنا كنا نطخطخ بالحجار في الشارع. حياتنا كانت غريبه. من هنا عنده اخو اصغر منه بس اكبر منه؟ اصغر منه بس اكبر منه. يعني انا اتولدت في الثمانينات، فزي الدجاج البلدي اجي صغير كذا. اخوي اتولد بعدي بس ضخم. ليش؟ لانه الوالده ما رضعته طبيعي، ادته نيدو مع كيماويات، فصار ضخم. يعني ضخم لدرجه الحين عايش وسط السحب راسه، فاهم؟ لابس مدرعات في رجله. ما في يعني. هذا لما اجي استدعي احد اصفر يقوم هو يجي. تعرفوا العمالقه؟ يعني اي مضاربه او شيء يصير في الحاره ما اسوي يعني والله اوريكم اكلم ابويا كيف، لا اطلع بوق. تعرفوا البوق؟ مؤشر. اخويا كبير ما شاء الله، كبير ويربي سمك. ايش التناقض هذا؟ يعني انت ضخم وربنا اداك جثه، تربي سمك ليه؟ ربي اسود. فيا الوضع صعب شويه، انه اخوك الكبير اصغر منك. انا مره اخاف مره يا اخي لما يمشي في طيور معاه تجي كذا، يوخر السحب بعدين يطالع فيه، امي تقول لك جيب عيش. طيب حاضر، هات اصبع رجلك. يخوف ترى. طيب مين هنا مطلق؟ ما حد يقول. مين متزوج؟ ها؟ مين متزوج ومبسوط؟ كذاب. كذاب. هذا في السنة الأولى والله، اللي حتى هي جنبه فاهم مبسوط؟ ايوه ساعدني نجدة. مشكلة. احنا نحبه صح كذا، ما في شيء انت تحبه هي تحبه، فانت لازم تحبه صح؟ ايش رايك نروح المكان ذاك اللي كان يعجبنا؟ ايوه المكان هذاك كان يعجبنا. تستسلم. الرجال مهما كان قوي البنت تغلبه بالاستمرارية ترى. والله انت قوي، لا الله يخليك، لا الله يخليك، طيب الله يخليك، الله يخليك، خذ المفتاح. خلاص استسلم. والله اليوم اللي يقول لا انت اصلا ايش سويت؟ ايش سويت لي؟ انت اصلا مين؟ بعدين حبيبي طلع خاتم الماس جديد، انت قلتي انا ايش سويت لك؟ انت رجال البيت وسيدنا وتاج راسنا، وانت تاج راسي وحبيبي، بليز برين مي. الله يخليك. استسلام تام. فلما تيجي تتزوج جماعة اتزوجوا بنات درسوا في مدارس حكومية والله، لأنه تعرف هذا تاخذ مصروف ريالين الأسبوع كله. فتقدرك، هذه تقدرك، عارف؟ لما نجيب له عمارة 20,000 الله يخليك تاج راسي أنت، فاهم؟ أما لما تتزوج واحدة درست مدرسة أهلية تقول لك لا لا لازم يكون عنده كل شيء، فلوس وجسم ويجيب لي خاتم ألماس وأخذ صورة في الإنستغرام وأوري صاحباتي ومرسيدس وفيلا وقصر ويركبني الخيل الأبيض اللي فيه له قرن ويكون عنده كل شيء كل شيء كل شيء. في واحدة مشيت ما عجبها الكلام. حكومي ولا أهلي؟ جاء اتصال الله يخليك يديك العافية يا أختي. بشويش الدرج قولوا بسم الله. أبدأ باليمين الله يخليك. شكرا. اليمين. طيب يا جماعة إن شاء الله تكونوا مبسوطين أموركم طيب وجاهزين للختلة. انتهى وقتي. الوقت اللي انا صفر ادوني تايم اب. انا طالع ذحين في درجه سياحيه تبوا شيء؟ يديكم الف عافيه وان شاء الله تكونوا دائما مبسوطين وجمعتكم مباركه يا رب. مع السلامه.
شكرا لك. All right. So now I wanted to talk to you about awards. You know now awards are given out in different fields. So we have entertainment awards, education awards, sports awards, and luckily yesterday we had the e-sport champion of FIFA, Saad al-Dosri, here with us on stage. Yeah, he was awesome. All right, so this shows the importance of even video games now have awards dedicated to them. So our upcoming speaker creates awards for playful achievements. And the nominees can be doctors, engineers, as long as they did something that would make you laugh and then think. And that's the title of his talk that he's going to give us today. He's going to talk to us about playful discoveries and inventions. Please put your hands together for Marc Abrahams.
I edit a magazine called Improbable Research, and 29 years ago I created a ceremony that happens every year that's called the Ig Nobel Prize Ceremony. I'm going to tell you about both of those things. They're related. They're all about this. This prize, this Ig Nobel Prize, is for this criterion, and it's the only criterion. It's for things that make people laugh and then think. Things that when you first encounter it, it's funny, and then there's something about it that sticks in your head so that a week later, you just want to tell your friends about it. That's the quality we look for. Every other prize in the world, at least I think every other prize, is different. It's for something that's the best, like the Olympics are for the best athletic performance, or the Nobel Prizes are for the most accomplished scientific whatever. Or there are a few prizes for the worst movie, the worst dressed. Best, worst, important, not important, that doesn't matter to us. It's just this one thing. I'm going to begin by showing you one Canadian man who won an Ig Nobel Prize, who's become a favorite of many people around the world. And a little background about grizzly bears. You don't have many grizzly bears in Saudi Arabia, at least last time I checked. They're big and they're powerful. They're really big and they're really powerful. And Troy Hurtubise is the name of this man. He was in the woods in Canada where there are grizzly bears, and he met a grizzly bear one time, and that was such a powerful experience to him, he decided he had to go out and spend more time in the woods with a grizzly bear. But it's dangerous. They could kill you very easily, and they probably will kill you very easily. So he decided to do something to make it safe for him to spend time in the woods with a grizzly bear. And we gave him a prize, an Ig Nobel Prize, in the field of safety engineering for doing this. We went to, as I said, the man named Troy Hurtubise, for developing and personally testing a suit of armor that's impervious to grizzly bears, he hopes. He spent years doing this.
Did, but it wasn't good enough for those. Yeah. So what we did was we built another suit, which we had planned to do, and redid the test, this time magnify them to how would one say, refute all. We pushed the trucks up to 3-ton trucks, 50 kilometers an hour. And then, of course, we did the boards.
A 3-ton truck ran into you at 50 kilometers an hour?
18 times.
I hope you will agree that that deserves some kind of prize. And it got a prize. Every year we give 10 of these prizes. We get nominations. Anybody can send in a nomination, and in a typical year we get about 10,000 new nominations for Ig Nobel Prizes. We also, anything that we did not give a prize to in the past, we'll consider it again. So the pool, after now 29 years, is enormous of potential winners. And of course there are 7 billion people all doing things all day long. I think it's important for you to know that when we choose somebody to win a prize, or choose a team to win a prize, we offer it to them. We offer it to them quietly. We give them the chance, if they want to say no. But I'm happy to report that almost everybody who is offered a prize says yes. And I'll show you a little bit about what happens. We have a ceremony, it happens in September in the US at Harvard University. And if you win an Ig Nobel Prize, you win an Ig Nobel Prize. It's a different design every year. They're always handmade from extremely cheap materials. This was the prize from 2017. This was the prize the next year. The ceremony features at its heart the 10 new Ig Nobel Prize winners who are kept secret until the moment they appear on stage. They travel from around the world to be there. And we, in between announcing the prizes, we do a lot of other stuff really fast, including even every year we write a little opera about something funny in science, and that's performed. And there's a lot of other stuff that happens. This is the prize that we gave just a month ago in this year's ceremony. I'm not even going to describe the details of that. You can see some of it for yourself. And up on stage in this theater where we have it, Sanders Theater, it's the biggest theater at Harvard. It's the biggest classroom at Harvard University. It fits 1,100 people. It's always completely filled. Up on stage, there are a bunch of Nobel Prize winners waiting to shake hands with the winners and to physically hand them the Ig Nobel Prizes. This photo was taken a few years ago when we had 9 Nobel Prize winners up on stage waiting to hand the prizes out. There are a few other people there, and you might notice there's a little girl in the middle. She, in a way, is the most important person in that whole ceremony because we had a problem in the early years, and it's a problem I'm sure you're familiar with. Happens at almost every public event where there are many people who are going to give speeches, and they all have a lot to say, and it's hard to keep them from saying that and then going on talking. But how do you politely get everybody to finish early? After many years of thought, we finally came up with a method, and the method involves the little girl. We recruit a very special, very cute little 8-year-old girl every year. She sits on the stage, and whenever she feels that somebody has already been talking too long, she'll stand up, she walks, this cute little girl, she walks all the way across the stage. She goes up to the person who's talking, and she looks up at that person and she says, "Please stop. I'm bored. Please stop. I'm bored. Please stop. I'm bored. Please stop. I'm bored." She does not stop until they do. And it works. Now, we don't really have any money, so the winners, when they come, they have to find their own way to travel from wherever they live in the world over to Massachusetts, where we are. But a few years ago, we figured out a way that we could give them some cash. We give them a lot of cash. Every winner now gets $10 trillion. They get a $10 trillion bill from the country of Zimbabwe. And you may know that Zimbabwe has an interesting history with its money, that they had adventures in inflation. The government official in Zimbabwe, the head of the National Bank, who was responsible for creating these $10 trillion bills and also $100 trillion bills, himself was awarded an Ig Nobel Prize for doing that. His was in the field of mathematics. And this is what it looks like at Sanders Theater. There's a tradition that started early on, I think the second year, where a lot of people in the audience who come to the show bring big stacks of paper with them, and they make paper airplanes. So imagine, if you will, 1,100 people throwing paper airplanes. Those airplanes, they pile up on the stage so quickly, we find it necessary to have several people whose job for the whole night is to take brooms and sweep, because if they don't do that, we can't walk around. All right, here's a quick look at a few of the many Ig Nobel Prize winners. One of the prizes we gave in the category of physics one year went to a man named Ji-won Han, who is a high school student in South Korea. He was honored for studying the dynamics of liquid sloshing. Sloshing means goes back and forth. And this is a technical term in engineering. Dynamics is a technical term, means movement, and liquid sloshing is a technical term. He studied the dynamics of liquid sloshing to learn what happens when a person walks backwards while carrying a cup of coffee. Now, he was inspired to do this by an earlier Ig Nobel Prize that we gave to some physics professors who had spent a long time figuring out, in theory and by testing, what happens when a person walks forward holding a full cup of coffee. And it turned out to be a much more interesting story in both cases than any of the scientists expected. What happens is, when you walk forwards, I expect everybody here has experienced this, if the cup is very full and you hold it like this and you walk normally at a regular pace, it's going to spill. And you might think it's because of something that's wrong with you. You're clumsy or something. But no matter who you are, it's almost certainly going to spill if you're walking normally, because you get into a rhythm. Da-da-da-da. And when you get into a rhythm, the water in there gets into a rhythm. And you know what happens when you're doing something rhythmically. It goes more and more and more, and that's why it spills. And that's what happens when you walk forwards. But this high school student in South Korea, reading about this, wondered what happens when you walk backwards. And it turns out it's a different story. You're not as likely to spill it, because when most people walk backwards, you don't get into that rhythm. You halt like this, and so the water doesn't get the chance to do this. Now, I would like to have a very quick demonstration. If we have 4 volunteers, we have 4 cups of coffee here. Could you please bring those out? Do we have 4 volunteers? Okay, just 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you just come up over right here, and if you could, fill those right to the top. Okay, come on right up over here, please. Okay, thank you all. You could stand right here. Each of you, please come right up here.
I'll get you water.
Okay, great. If one of you could stand here, facing this way. Yeah. Okay, here's your coffee. Please do not drink it. Okay, if you could stand right here next to him. And here's your coffee. Okay, it's very full. Okay, be careful with it. Okay, and if you could stand right next to her. Okay, that's good. Take it. Here's yours. Okay, and wait right there. I'd like you to hold it out as far as you can, and don't move yet. When I say go, not yet, but when I say go, walk over to me quickly, normally and quickly. Okay, so, all right, go. Now stop. All right, now stay right there. And now I'm going to go over there, and I'd like you to walk backwards. But wait until I say go. All right, are you ready? Go. Stop, stop, stop. And that's the demonstration. Thank you very much for our volunteers. Oh my goodness, you probably can't see it quite so well from where you are, but this stage is a mess right now. Okay, thank you again for all of our volunteers. This is the scientific paper published by the high school student in a good physics journal. It's called A Study on the Coffee Spilling Phenomena in the Low Impulse Regime, and it's a very complicated piece of work. Here he is at the Ig Nobel ceremony, giving his acceptance speech, holding up a cup of coffee. You may notice that there's a man next to him painted silver. Is anybody curious about why there is that man there? He is a human spotlight. His job is he has a flashlight. His job is to illuminate the proceedings. The man doing that is named Jim Brett. He's actually Dr. Jim Brett. He has a PhD from MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He's an inventor. He has many patents. I think he has two inventions that are especially interesting in the world. One is he invented this idea of the human spotlight. The other is, you've heard of something called 3D printing, three-dimensional printing? That's one of the people who invented it. Same guy. Okay. Oh, also a hand for our mop sweeper. Thank you. Okay. We gave in a different year, we gave an Ig Nobel Physics Prize to a team of scientists from Australia who published a scientific report about some research they had done called An Analysis of the Forces Required to Drag Sheep Over Various Surfaces. This is their paper, an analysis of the forces required to drag sheep over various surfaces, and this photo from their paper shows you some of the work being done. When I called them up on the telephone and offered them the prize, that telephone call was the first moment any of them realized that what they'd done is funny. We gave an Ig Nobel Prize in the field of psychology one year in fact this year, to a German scientist called Fritz Strack for discovering that holding a pen in one's mouth, like this, discovering that holding a pen in one's mouth makes one smile, which makes one happy. And for then, later, discovering that, no, it does not. This was the first paper he published years ago. You can see it has got a long title. And then he thought about it for many years, and he decided that, maybe the evidence was not so good. And he did some more experiments, and then published this later paper saying that, maybe it's not true. So this is a very interesting thing that happens in science, where good scientists are not embarrassed to really check what they've done and see, is it right what we did, or could we have been mistaken? And here he is, Fritz Strack, at the Ig Nobel ceremony with his prize. We gave the psychology prize another year to a psychologist named Lawrence Sherman for a report that he wrote and published in a research journal called An Ecological Study of Glee in small groups of preschool children. He studied glee, this intense, sudden, wee happiness in young kids. And there it is. You can get a copy from the library. And what he discovered is, yes, it happens. You get big groups of kids together, you put them in certain situations, and it's going to start happening. One kid feels gleeful, starts shouting, and suddenly they all do. And he had a very happy time doing this research. We gave the Ig Nobel Literature Prize one year to a team of 3 scientists who were in several different countries working together for discovering that the word huh, or its equivalent, seems to exist in every human language. And they won the prize also for not being completely sure why. Right. Now, you have an equivalent word in Arabic. What is the word for huh? All right. Most of the winners are able to travel to the ceremony. These ones weren't, so they sent us a very short acceptance speech that I'm going to show you on video. This is the paper that they published, Is Ha a Universal Word? And if I had a little more time, I'd explain it. It's much more interesting what they discovered about why this happens, much more interesting than you might at all guess. And here's their acceptance speech.
Huh? Huh?
Okay. You want to see that again?
Huh? Huh?
Huh? We gave a prize in the field of Arctic science. So we had to invent that category. To some scientists up in Norway for testing how reindeer react to seeing humans who are disguised as polar bears. They published this paper. It's got a long title, which I won't read. And this is what they were interested in. You know that up in the Arctic area, the ice is melting. It's not as cold for as much of the year as it used to be. And when the ice melts, the polar bears don't have as much ice to live on. So the polar bears are starting to spend more time on land, and the animals there are soon going to be seeing a lot more polar bears, which are very dangerous for them. So these scientists were wondering, what are the reindeer going to do when they start seeing polar bears? Are they going to run? Are they going to freeze? Are they going to get eaten? What's going to happen? Well, how do you answer a question like this? How do you test it? And this is what they thought of. They said, well, we can't control the polar bear, but we'll put an imitation polar bear. And how do you imitate a polar bear? Well, that's what they did. And as you can see, they say these are their own words, that there was an astonishing similarity here. And here are the winners at the ceremony being reminded that it's time for them to finish their speech. And I'll show you one last Ig Nobel Prize of the almost 300 prizes we've given. This went to a large international team that was based in Italy. They won a prize for discovering that some people would be physically capable of running across the surface of a pond if those people and that pond were on the moon. So you know, and you probably have thought a little bit about what it would be like to be on the moon, which is much smaller than the Earth, and the force of gravity is much weaker there. You know that you've seen the films of astronauts bouncing along, and they wondered, is the gravity weak enough there, the pull of gravity weak enough that you could, walk? Or no, you couldn't walk maybe, but if you ran fast enough, could you maybe run across the surface of the water? Well, how do you test that? That's what their paper was about. And the last thing I'm going to show you is they filmed some of their experiments. So here's what they could come up with as a way to try to test their idea. They made a machine that would try to simulate the lower gravity pull on the moon. There you are. Next year's ceremony will be the 30th, first annual Ig Nobel Prize ceremony. It's in September. We webcast it. We pretty much invented webcasting. We didn't realize at the time, but back in 1995, we've been webcasting the ceremony every year since. I hope you can travel over and get a ticket and be in the audience, but if you can't, I hope you'll watch the webcast, and you can see video on our website of most of the past ceremonies. The last thing I want to say is that if you run across somebody, you hear of somebody who you think deserves an Ig Nobel Prize, you think whatever they've done will make anybody in the world laugh and then think, let us know. This is how we learn about most of the people who win prizes. Usually it's one person sees this and lets us know. I guess I'll finish with the sentence I say at the end of every Ig Nobel Prize ceremony, every year. If you did not win an Ig Nobel Prize this year, and especially if you did, better luck next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark, for that. And I wanted to ask you a question.
First of all, would you like to smile? No, this is for you.
Oh. Awesome. Thank you so much for the pen. I wanted to ask you if any Saudis has ever won the IG Nobel Award.
Yes, the Ig Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
Yes, this year, a month ago, one of the prizes went to a Saudi scientist and his team. They won a prize for doing some experiments about itching and scratching. They were trying to figure out what they were trying to measure on different parts of your body what they called the pleasurability of scratching an itch. And so they made people itchy on several parts of their body, and they discovered that the most pleasurable places, in other words, scratching it makes you feel so much better. The three places that they say are most common to give you the most relief and the most pleasure are the neck, the ankles, and the back. Now, everybody's a little different, so you may find some other body part works. And if so, I would urge you get in touch with these scientists because they probably would enjoy hearing this new data from you.
All right, I guess that's all the time we have today.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you.
Thank you for the pen. All right. So I think by now we established that playing isn't just for fun. Playing affects our emotions, our physicality, and it depends on what we're playing that we get all these benefits. Today, we have a speaker that's going to explain to us how to know ourselves better through play. She's a game designer and an immersive theater artist. And please welcome the creator of Chaos Theory, Jessica Creane.
My name is Jessica Creane, and I am a game and an immersive theater designer. Often I do those things at the same time. And when I was 7 years old, my parents gave me a book called Marette on the High Wire, and it was a book about a little girl who wanted to be a tightrope walker. And I loved this book. I thought I would be a tightrope walker. So I went into my first grade class, and I started a tightrope walking club for all of the first grade girls. And no one takes play more seriously than first grade girls. So during recess, we would go outside, and we would practice our tightrope walking skills. So we would be heel-toe to start. And then we started with our eyes closed. And then eventually we would work our way up to all of the playground apparatuses, the curb, and then the beams, and then the bridges that rock back and forth, all the way up to these rope ladders. And there was one rope ladder where you had to hold on to two side ropes just to make your way across it. Or, if you're me, you just get on top of it. And I knew that this was a bad idea. I knew that I was going to get in trouble for this, and I knew that I had to do it. I just felt like I had to be a tightrope walker, and this was the way to do it. So I got up there, and sure enough, about 6 steps in, my first grade teacher sees me and comes running over, yelling, She pulls me down, and she sends me to the principal's office. And the principal calls my parents, and my parents come in, and then the principal proceeds to tell my parents that their 7-year-old daughter is a hooligan, rabble-rouser, leader of a 7-year-old girl gang who is flouting all of the unwritten rules of the playground. In other words, I was playing wrong, and I was dragging all of the other girls down with me. So I left this meeting with my parents, and I'm sobbing because I'm 7, and I thought I was letting my parents down, and I didn't want to drag the other girls down with me, and also I thought that I would never be allowed to tightrope walk ever again, and I had only really gotten about 6 steps in. So in order to leave school, you have to walk through the playground. So I'm with my parents, and we're standing in front of this rope ladder, and I think that I am in for the lecture of a lifetime. I think that my parents are going to start saying those things like, "How could you? This is so dangerous. You could have gotten hurt. We'll never forgive you." And instead of grounding me, literally, my dad picks me up, and he puts me up on top of the rope ladder, and he says, "All right, Jessie, let's see what you can do." So I later learned that there is a phrase for the feeling you get when you are standing up here, somewhere kind of high up and maybe a little bit dangerous, looking out into the void, and you have 2 choices. One is to step back to safety, to all the things that are familiar to you, and the other is to step into the unknown, to try something, even if it is scary, and even if you think you might get in trouble for it. And that phrase is a French phrase, and it is called l'appel du vide, and it means the call of the void. And that is what I felt about tightrope walking when I was 7, and that is a feeling that my parents recognized in me. And so instead of taking it away from me, they encouraged me to play. They encouraged me to answer the call of the void. Unfortunately, not all of the parents of my first grade friends felt that way. They did not want their 7-year-old daughters to be up on some tightrope wires. And so our little club was officially disbanded. We were forbidden from practicing on school property. And this did 2 things. First, it showed me, for sure, that the consequences of play are the exact same thing as the consequences of reality. There is no difference. Our little make-believe club was real life disbanded, all because we were playing too intensely. And the second thing that it did was that I had to find a new creative outlet. If I couldn't be a tightrope walker, I had to be something else. So this is what moved me from being a part of playground plays to theatrical plays. And maybe it doesn't seem like that big of a jump, but I started to notice some differences between make-believe play and theatrical plays. And the first of them was production value. Plays have a pretty high production value. You have costumes and sets, and this world gets built for you. Whereas with make-believe play, everyone has to imagine everything for themselves. The second is asymmetry. In theatrical productions, it is the performers who do the playing. And that's it. Everyone else just watches them play. Whereas when you are playing make-believe, everyone gets to pretend, and everyone gets to participate in building this world of play. And the third change that I noticed was that in theatrical plays, the actors play roles. You are decidedly playing someone who is not you. And you are encouraged to find the differences between the person you are playing and yourself. Whereas with make-believe play, you are always playing yourself. Maybe you're playing you in 20 years as a doctor or a princess or a queen, but you are always essentially playing yourself. And so I also started to notice that the more I played a role, the less I was playing as myself. And I started to miss this really key element of play that had been a part of my life as a child. And it was gone for a really long time in my life. And I didn't start to recover this sense of play until many, many years later when I was in grad school and I took a class called The History of Games. And if you have ever experienced love at first sight, then you will know what I felt when I took my first game design class, because I was completely enamored of it. I couldn't get enough. I was giddy walking into class every day. I was so delighted to be doing this thing that I had really been missing for a long time. And it also reinvigorated my love of theater. And so I started to look for some of the strengths in both, particularly immersive theater. And so I noticed that theater is really good at a couple of things. Storytelling being number one. Theater is amazing at taking a beginning and working through to the middle and taking you all the way to the end in a really clear story. It is also really good at building tension because theater doles out information over time. Players and performers and words transform us, and we have this ability in theater to take all of the audience on this really crazy emotional journey. And the third is that it puts everyone in the same space. Live performance means that we are all in the same theater, we can look each other in the eye, and we develop this sort of communal consciousness. On the other hand, there is games, and games have their own strengths. Number one is agency. Games allow all of the players to make really meaningful choices. And those choices affect the gameplay. They don't just disappear into nothing. They change the way the games are played. Games also have the ability to set clear goals and expectations for the performers. You usually get a rule book. So it's not something that has to get doled out over time. You know exactly what is expected of you when you are playing a game. And the last is that games are really challenging. And we expect games to challenge us in a way that we don't necessarily expect life or theater to challenge us. And so I started noticing all of these things, and then I started to put them all together. What does it look like if they're not separate, but we look at play and plays together? And so this is what I started doing. I started melding these things into what is called playable theater. And I started looking at this spectrum and seeing how these things can interact with real life and real consequences. But of course, there's a very big difference between talking about experiences and actually playing through experiences. So I thought we would take just a couple of minutes to play a little game. So for this game, I will need 2 volunteers who are feeling a particular call of the void right now. We've got one over here in the second row and one right behind. Okay, great, come on up. Join us. Great. So this game is called Schrödinger's cat. It is a game of metaphysics. So if you are familiar with Schrödinger's cat, fantastic. You have a leg up on the rest. If you're not, don't worry. Sometimes it is best to go in knowing nothing at all. Are either of you familiar with this particular thought experiment? Excellent. So Schrödinger's cat is a game that explores an idea of whether or not 2 things can exist at the same time, even if they are opposites. For instance, can something be both alive and dead at the same time, for instance? So this is a tiny, tiny little game here. So I'm going to show you all of the game pieces up here. But the first thing that you are going to do is you are going to name your cat. So this is your cat. And you get 1 cat between the 2 of you, and you're going to name it. We'll wait. You're welcome to crowdsource if you'd like. So we work together? Yes, you're going to work together. This is so conspiratorial. You can ask the audience as well. You don't have to. Susan? Is that what I heard? Susan? Great. Okay, so here's Susan. Here you go. It's what? It's not a name for a cat. Well, it is now. I mean, it's a name for a cat if you decide to name your cat Susan. How are you feeling? Good. Good? Okay. Great. So you're just going to take Susan and you're going to put Susan into this little bunker. Okay. Great. So there's Susan. Susan's in the bunker. And so now you're just going to decide which one of you would like to be the scuba master and which one of you would like to be the cat wrangler. If you do know the thought experiment, then yes, I have taken some artistic license here. Scuba master, great. So these are your tokens. You're going to open them up, and these are yours as the cat wrangler. So, scuba master and cat wrangler, you have some choices to make. Scuba master, this is one of your tokens. If you choose to put this token into the bunker with Susan, then there is going to be cat poison that fills up a tank that goes into a little cat-shaped scuba tank here. If you put that cat poison into the tank, the rest of the bunker is going to fill up with oxygen. Or you could put in a tank that it fills up with oxygen, that's going to feed oxygen into that tank. And if you do that, the rest of the bunker will fill up with cat poison. Okay? Now, cat wrangler, you are going to choose to either wrangle your cat into that scuba gear or not. So, do you know each other? Great. So you can use any of the next to nothing that you currently know about each other to make this choice, but you can no longer talk to each other. Okay. Your goal from here on out is to keep Susan alive as long as possible.
Oh, we have to keep it alive.
Yeah.
Because I think I have to make it.
Well, I would just keep it secret.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're going to make these choices separately, but simultaneously. Don't tell him. Okay. Absolutely don't tell him. Yeah. So once you've made your choices, I'd say maybe put them behind your back, but you should know which one you're going to choose here. Okay. Take your time. You can't look. You come over here. What is your name? You're also a troublemaker, aren't you? Started any tightrope walking clubs as a child?
Yes.
Yes? Oh, good. We're kindred spirits here. Are you good? Okay, great. So, once you have in your hand the token of the choice that you are making, you are going to look each other in the eye, and you are not going to stop looking each other in the eye until you have placed the token of your choice into the bunker. Okay. So full eye contact. Great. This is a new one for me. Great, so eye contact the whole time, great. Perfect, perfect, you got this. Excellent, all right. What's done is done. This is our world now. So I'm just gonna put this in here. And now, so you're gonna keep these secrets. So all that's left to do now is make sure that this is our one and only world. We're gonna obliterate any other reality from ever being an option, okay? So Scuba Master, just take a moment and can you just turn around that way? Great, okay. Now Cat Wrangler, you're gonna take the token of the choice that you did not make, and you're gonna put it into here, and just give it a little swirl around. Great. Thank you. Yeah, you can leave it in. And now you're going to turn around. Great. And you can turn back around. Great. And put in the token of the choice that you are not making. Yep, put it right in. And just give it a little swirl around. Thank you very much. All right, and you can both turn back around now. Great, come on back. Good. So this is our world now, and all that's left to do is live with your choices for the rest of your life. How are you doing?
I think we did bad choices.
You think you made the bad choices?
Yeah.
I love your confidence. Great. So right now, is your cat definitely dead?
A bit? Or what?
Well, right now, is your cat definitely dead?
I hope not.
You don't know, right. And let's say we open it, and your cat is dead. Whose fault is it?
Maybe mine, because I put the I put the oxygen here for.
Oh,
I did nothing.
Sure. Well, you know, that's what happens. So we'll talk about this one in a second. So this is yours now. I don't want this. This belongs to the two of you, and you can decide what you want to do. This is incredibly fast. Great. Did it live? She's alive. Susan lives. Excellent. Great. Thank you very much. You can keep this. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Susan is your cat. Yeah, Susan's yours. I have enough cat blood on my hands, alive or dead. So you may have noticed that in this particular performance game, it is definitely a game, and there's a little bit of performance to it, and there's also some real-world consequences. These ones are particularly short-lived because there was a real lack of care about this particular aspect of the game by these two particular players. And that's the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes you're just willing to risk a cat's death. But players play this in all kinds of ways. Some players have been playing upwards of 2 years now. They pass this little tin back and forth to them every couple of months, partially as an excuse to get together and chat, and also because they want to make sure that the other person hasn't opened the tin and broken their pact. Sometimes people open it immediately because they want their curiosity to be sated, even at the expense of a cat's life. Other players will psychologically torture each other. Sometimes one player will open it and the other one doesn't want to know. And I can tell you that that never ends well. And so there are all of these sort of infinite ways to play. And this is, in fact, an infinite tabletop game. It can be played beyond the natural lifespan of the players if they so choose. And so this is what got me really interested in this idea that games can bleed into real life. Performance can bleed into real life in ways that can be really exciting for us, and also potentially help us to think about all of these different sort of complex and abstract ideas like philosophical thought experiments. So I started making a whole bunch of different experiences that explore this. I worked with the National Park Service to make some games about climate change that can never be won, or games that can be only played one time through. I also made a sport based on the rules of Japanese poetry. This is a game called haiku, and it is an actual physical sport. This Museum of Philosophy piece was a full philosophy museum that we developed where each gallery has exhibits that are games, and each game is designed to ask players to play through a particular philosophy. And there are also performative aspects to it. I play as a tour guide, and I will take people on a tour of this museum, and based on the choices that they make in each game, I'll take them to different exhibits. So their choices have really meaningful consequences within this narrative arc. R&J is a mobile game where two people play through the story of Romeo and Juliet over the course of 5 days, all via text message. And this is also a pretty clear example of what happens when the game ends and the play begins. So just as with Schrödinger's cat, the game ends, and in that moment, the actual play, the actual choice-making begins for the players. With this game, R&J, players get to the 5th day of the game, and they've been going through this kind of emotional journey together. And on the very last day, they're told to delete each other's phone numbers and never contact each other again. Because, spoiler alert, Romeo and Juliet die in the end. So that's the idea. But some people don't do that. They refuse to do it. And instead, they choose to meet up in real life instead. And nowhere in the rules does it say that you can do that. But of course, I was secretly hoping that people would do that, because that means that the game has really forged some real connections. So the first 2 people who played it actually went on a date after playing this game, and they are still dating. To this day, they fell in love, which is delightful. So it's sort of hit or miss, of course. You can get someone who's not going to be your soulmate. But play has this real power to bond people together. Again, it is game, and it is performance, and it is also real-world consequences. And just like with Schrödinger's cat, the real play, the real choice-making happens after all of this intense theatrical setup, essentially. This is a series of games that I make for individuals. So I will take individual people and I will turn them into games. I will figure out what the mechanics of you are and then turn those things into a playable version of yourself. So again, all of these elements of who are you in real life and how can that be translated into a very particular aspect of play. And this last one, chaos theory, is another playable theater experience where players come in for a talk about chaos theory that quickly sort of devolves into a series of interactive games about aspects of chaos theory. So players can play through fractals and the butterfly effect and strange attractors. And there is this narrative arc that follows them through, all the way through to the very last game of the piece, which asks them to use everything that they have learned about chaos theory over the course of this journey and apply it to the chaos of their lives, their personal lives, relationships or careers or whatever it is. And people have left this particular experience, and 3 people left and immediately went and got tattoos that they had always wanted to get. 1 person shaved their head. A couple of people have adopted pets. 2 people also fell in love, and they are still dating, and they email me all the time to update me on their relationship. And 1 person picked up an art project that he hadn't finished in 2 years and spent the next 6 months delving into it. And 1 other person started his own theater company, which he had wanted to do for his whole life. And he actually, in the last year since seeing the piece, he has bought a theater, refurbished that theater, and he just produced a play in the same festival that he saw chaos theory in a year ago. So all of these things are these playful elements that happen when the game ends. The game is this intense lead up to what we can do with play in our real lives. Because again, there is no difference between the consequences of play and the consequences of anything else going on in our lives. They are equal. It's just that play is a more fun way to get to things. So all of this is just a way of saying that playable theater has this ability to help us to jump into the void, to follow this feeling that we all have sometimes, that we need some change in our lives and that we need to be just taking a moment, seeing the abyss in front of us and deciding not to return to the safety of the thing that we know, the thing that is familiar, and instead leaping into the unknown. And it is my job as a playable theater maker to make that walk from way back here all the way to the edge of that cliff as easy and delightful and social as possible, using all of these tools of immersive theater and game design. To the point where all of these groups coming through these pieces don't need me in order to make this happen. They can work with each other to get through to this piece and say, at the end, okay, here you go, here's the play, here we all are in this world of play. How could I not ground you in this moment, but lift you up and just say, hey, let's see what you can do. Thank you.
All right, Jessica, thank you so much for your presentation. That was very insightful.
Thank you.
All right, I wanted to ask you, I wanted to see if any of our audiences have any questions. And do we have any questions? Yes, we have a question on the third row over here.
I was wondering, what's the name of the game?
Which game?
The cat and the choice.
It's called Schrodinger's cat. I got real creative with naming.
Right, thanks.
So you made the game up?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's great. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, as a teacher, how can I get that experience, like those experiences of immersiveness and immersive play into the classroom? Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, absolutely. I bring games in all the time.
Oh, okay, great.
So I teach game design, and also the big thing that I do is just make them make games.
Oh, okay.
That's the easiest way to do it,
All
because
right.
they will follow the play. Whoever your students are, they know what they want to make, and they're going to be very proud of it. No matter what, in my experience. As long as you are positive about their game, they're going to be so excited to make it. So there's a way to take all of these mechanics in the same way that you can gamify individuals or you can gamify a scientific thought experiment. Whatever it is that you want to make a game out of, just find the action in it. So what is the thing that is most playful and most actionable? And then you can turn that into a game.
Okay, that's great. And you think that's also applicable on children, like in the house as a mother as well? And yeah?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
definitely.
Awesome, thank you so much. So I guess, do we have any more questions? Okay, we have one more question over here.
Hi.
Hi.
I really enjoyed the talk and thanks for it. My question is, what is the steps to make a play or games?
Oh my goodness, yeah, sure. How much time we got? 2 minutes? Great. There are infinite ways to go about it. There's really no one way to make a game or a playable theater piece, but there is something that I have found really helpful. There are two schools of thought about how to go about game making in particular. Some people come at it story first. Here's a story that I want to tell. What are some game elements that will help me to tell this story? So this is traditionally referred to as narratology. And then there's the opposite of that, which is ludology, which is the study of play. And so you have an idea for a mechanic, something exciting that you want to play with. Like, for instance, you say, I want to make a game with dissolving pieces. And then you figure out what story will fit those elements. So it depends where your interests lie, where do you find this excitement, and then just follow that. Talk to me later. I'll be less vague.
All right, yes, and you'll be with us in the Knowledge Oasis for the get to know each other a bit better. If you have more questions, she's going to be there after we finish our forum today. So thank you so much for being with us today. That was a pleasure.
Thank you all.
أهلا وسهلا. ها كيف الانرجي كمان تبغى اوصفها كمان ما يحتاج صح؟ طيب متحدثنا القادم متحدث جدا رائع وفنان وله يعني خبرة مرة طويلة وكبيرة في مجال عفروت. يا أهلا، إيش فيك؟
كيف حالك؟
أهلا وسهلا.
تمام؟
الحمد لله.
ممكن طلب صغير؟
طلب أنت تؤمر عفروت.
الله يخليك. أقول لكم 3 أيام قاعدين بس تبربروا متحدث على متحدث ورا بعض، يعني رهيبين استفدنا.
طيب
بس نبغى شوية وناسة يا أخي.
وناسة، طيب إيش في بالك أفكار يعني زي إيش نسوي وناسة؟
موسيقى.
موسيقى، يا سلام.
ايوه، تبغوا موسيقى؟
تبغوا موسيقى وطرب يا جماعه؟ تبغوا عفروت؟ حمسوا عفروت، يلا اعطوه صفقه كبيره لعفروت.
طيب
عفروت
هذا جيتار جبته من سوق سويكت.
من فين جبته؟
من سويكت.
سويكت، كيف سويكت معاك كان؟
ها؟
خلاص انت شرقاوي صرت.
ايوه.
طيب
5 ريال.
5 ريال والله ممتاز، بس اخاف يخرب عليك دحين.
لا ما يحتاج.
طيب اظن احنا جاهزين نسمع لك، يلا تفضل عفروت.
ما اعرف اعزف.
مسوي لنا زحمه ومدري ايش، عفروت ترى عندنا شو لازم نخلص يعني ما ينفع.
بس هنا ممكن اي احد من هنا يعزف.
اي احد يعزف؟
ايوه.
مين؟
شوف هذا هنا عبد الله رافع، هذا يعرف يعزف.
مين؟ عبد الله رافع هنا. اوه يا سلام يا سلام، اهلا وسهلا.
تعال خذ القط، خذ.
اهلا وسهلا، والله لا ما دام عبد الله رافع.
اصبر. خذ هذا.
خذ هذه كمان. ايوه والله عفروت مجهز لك كل شيء يا عبد الله. حماس عبد الله. من فين جيت عبد الله؟
من ابو ظبي، انا سعودي من جده.
يا سلام.
جاي من ابو ظبي
وش تسوي في ابو ظبي؟
بشتغل في افتح يا سمسم.
يا سلام يا
برنامج
سلام.
اطفال بس عفروت. هذا 200 مو ب5
بس 200
يا
خيالك ضحكوا عليك. روح سويكت عندهم ب5.
طيب طبعا عبد الله يعني عبد الله هيز ارتست وبرضه زي ما قلت شغال في البرودكشن حق افتح يا سمسم وبرضه
ممثل مغني بحاول اكتب.
يا سلام.
بشتغل مع عفروت. اكشلي كنت عايش مع عفروت الين قبل اسبوع. عفروت نقل من عندنا.
لا
توحشنا مره كثير
عشان نرجع هنا.
عشان ايش تجي عشان يجي الفعاليه. ترى هذه الفعاليه بالنسبه له مره مهمه.
بالضبط.
عفروت تبغى تسمع اغنيه صح؟
ايوه.
طيب تحيه لعبد الله يا جماعه.
عفروت.
ايوه.
هذه الاغنيه اللي فتحت راسك بيها.
لا يا شيخ انا ما بسمعها معلش. انتوا انبسطوا انا ابغى اروح.
اغنيه عن قصه حب بين بركان وبركانه. من أعوام وزمان كان هناك بركان وحده في الماء وبدون أصدقاء. طالما رأى هناك أصحابا من الأسماك وتمنى أن يحظى بحبيب. من قلب الحمم قد جاء نغم يشدو به بأمل كل يوم عله يصيب. هو حلمي أشتاق أن يأتي ألقى حبي يسعد قلبي. أحلم أن يأتيني من يملأ قلبي بغرام يزيد لهيبي. الاشتياق لأعوام كاد يخمد الحمام لتصير صخرة بلا أي لهيب. ولكن تحت الماء هناك من تهوى الغنى وتشتو بصوتها الجميل. هو حلمي أشتاق أن يأتي ألقى حبي يسعد قلبي. أحلم أن يأتيني من يملأ قلبي بغرام يزيد لهيبي.
الله 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 الله. روعة جميل. والله شكرا عفروت انك يعني نقلت لنا عبد الله صراحه يعني من جد امتعنا.
ايوه لا ما يحتاج ما شاء الله عبد الله رهيب.
طيب تحيه كبيره مره ثانيه لعبد الله. شكرا وشكرا لعفروت.
شكرا. اخر ليله معاكم فنشوفكم ان شاء الله على خير وشكرا لكم.
يلا تصبحوا لسه باقي شيء عفروت.
كلمة واحدة بس before I leave. يا جماعة عفروت is on YouTube. Go follow him. You'll find all his videos because he's trying to make a comeback and you can do it. عفروت I believe in you.
والله عبد الله مظبطك عفروت.
Thank you.
تحية مرة ثانية لعبد الله وعفروت.
All right, so as we've seen from the last 3 days, that there are so many ways to play here on Earth. But what if we take play and go to outer space? Personally, I think I'd want to bring water and spill it all over the spaceship to see how water can float and try drinking it, maybe. I don't know. That'd be really fun. But our next speaker definitely has more experience when it comes to space. He's the first Japanese astronaut on a space shuttle. He will talk to us about sustainability beyond science and technology. Please give it up for Dr. Mohri.
Well, hello everyone. I'm very pleased to be here to share some of my thoughts with you this evening. And first, let me introduce myself, my background briefly, and then move into what I mean by sustainability beyond science and technology. Who is this cute boy? It's me. When I was 13 years old, I dreamed of going into space because the first man to fly into space, the Russian Yuri Gagarin, inspired me. I was so excited when watching the TV news that I asked my brother to take a picture of me together with Yuri Gagarin. By the way, on the screen, Yuri Gagarin is this person. And I remember Gagarin said in space that this planet is beautiful, shining blue. I really wanted to become an astronaut. However, at that time, to become an astronaut, you have to be either Russian or American. Therefore, with a sigh, I had to give up my childhood dream and develop a more realistic dream of being a scientist. Years later, I was involved in a nuclear fusion research project whose purpose was to create an artificial sun on Earth to solve energy problems. One day, I heard the news that the government was recruiting candidates to become the first Japanese astronauts, people who conduct microgravity weightlessness experiment in space. I was very excited and applied immediately. It took almost 2 years in the selection process. It was really lucky for me to be selected as the first Japanese astronaut among so many applicants. I kept that target in front of me, and with the help of many, many great people, I was able to reach for the stars and finally catch my dream. It took almost 30 years after I had a dream of being an astronaut when watching TV news.
15.
Countdown is going.
11, 10, 9, 8, 7. We have a go for main engine start. 4.
Here's the launch.
3, 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Space Shuttle Endeavour on a 21st century mission, placing Earth back on the map.
The speed is accelerated faster and faster, and finally reached 8 kilometers per second or 30,000 kilometers per hour to orbit the planet. And we wanted to have a deeper connection by having people on Earth experience space, so we created the first live broadcast called Classroom in Space. These students from my hometown school participated, and it was my great pleasure to have a live, real-time interaction with them.
The JPS is standing by.
スペースシャトルから声が聞こえてきました。い
We
よいよ宇宙事業の始まり
played
です。
real-time classroom between ground and space.
モーリさん。
As my hometown is famous for producing apples, I demonstrated to catch an apple thrown from the ground. I gave real-time science classes on microgravity and also videotape many demonstration experiments to share with all students in Japan. I really enjoyed this play. And my most important task in space were to conduct research experiments proposed by many scientists of the world. And here I was noting how a frog responded to microgravity, weightlessness in space. This is one of my favorite demonstrations, as Japan's cherry blossoms are an important part of our culture. Watch how a cherry blossom bird behaved with the water sphere. I was curious as a scientist. Would the bird bloom or being kept outside? The result was beautiful. Fully bloomed in space. Another play. This experiment is only possible in weightlessness. I explored the space environment twice and then challenged it, another alien environment for play. On the ground, that is the deep sea. I myself dove in the Shinkai 6500 and observed a unique deep sea environment going down. No light penetrates such deep water. It's pitch dark, like space. Here we reached 6,500 meters exactly. We used a manipulated arm to collect floor-bed samples. To search for living organisms in the deep sea, we carried fish for bait. At such depth, shrimp came to pick up the fish. Just imagine under 650 atmospheric pressure. I'm always impressed with how much great potential earthbound life species have. Yet another exploration, the southern polar cap. We decided to create the first live broadcast from Antarctica that featured the total eclipse of the sun. And that was broadcast nationwide. This is another play. And then we returned to Antarctica. At that time, a live internet link-up was very rare. We simultaneously connected 3 science museums with us in Antarctica. We conducted the same graphic experiments in 4 different locations in the world. We used identical equipment to measure dust particles contained in the air at each location to understand the environment and air pollution of the planet.
My name is Dr.
Another play.
Working in Antarctic science.
Now, I have the pleasure of working as the Chief Executive Director of Miraikan, a science center focused on the latest science and technology. By the way, Mirai means future in Japanese. Kan means house. Here is a preview. Another play. Three things make Miraikan unique. First, every exhibition is conceived, created, and overseen by a team of active scientists. Scientists enjoy play. Second, Miraikan has real scientists on the floor engaging the visitors in dialogue. We call them science communicator. And we train them to improve their potential abilities in order to create innovative activities by means of science and technology and share them with all areas of society to enjoy another play for them in society. Third, we have 10 laboratories within Miraikan doing cutting-edge researches in diversified field of science. So we consider Miraikan much more than just a museum. We consider Miraikan to be a science center. We also have many events and workshops as a play, in addition to 3 unique activities. Happiness on Earth was an international project in which young high school students from Asia shared their visions of what makes happiness by science and technology, and then collaborated to create a visual expression of those ideas. We need visionaries with creative solutions for global issues, as well as visions for the future. This Visionary Camp project has been just launched this month. Research starts with a vision, followed by experimentation. Visionaries provide ingenious innovations that engage people to take action. This new approach in co-creation and innovation in society has been encouraging the interaction between young adults and scientists and attracting global companies co-sponsorship. We expand another play. I'm happy to announce here that Aramco's participation in Miraikan activities. Our agreement exchange between myself and Aramco's representative director, Mr. Omar Al-Amdi. We are grateful for their continued support for the special exhibition with the subject of Anthropocene entitled Digging the Future. This is a premiere performance of Digging the Future. We continually seek to incorporate all areas of society and create partnerships with what many would consider the most unlikely groups. Here, scientists, animation specialists, and even rap artists collaborated in creating this exhibit. Now you can hear Japanese rap lyrics. See the animation all based upon science, depicting what our current generations of life will leave as a layer in the sediment. The message tells you what is the meaning of human existence on this planet as Anthropocene, and how it will be evaluated far into the future when aliens may visit our planet and discover our existence through digging and excavating. Very thin layer of our existence. Miraikan has enjoyed a good relationship with Saudi Arabia. Here you can see examples of Saudi Arabia events featuring Saudi students in Japan and Saudi Arabia who participated in functions at Miraikan. 2 years ago, Miraikan hosted the Science Center World Summit 2017 under the theme of Connecting the World for a Sustainable Future. The summit is a gathering of the members of the World Science Museum networks, along with a wide variety of stakeholders from societies and supported by numerous international organizations. 98 countries were represented with over 800 participants. Tokyo's summit proposed the Tokyo Protocol that science museums' activities should meet the United Nations SDGs. American's vision proposed in 2011, right after our disaster of earthquake and explosion of nuclear fusion power plants, state that for 10 billion people to sustain their lives on Earth, American designed, develops, and delivers science communication activities to all with the goal of discovering solutions to global challenges by collaborating with science museums and other stakeholders around the planet. American's mission coincides with the United Nations SDGs. We believe museums around the world should play a new role towards human sustainability. Our global approach, if we sustain Earth, we can then sustain the human species, is enthusiastically welcomed and supported by world leaders. They have shown sincere interest through their visits, now becoming global play. Last month, the American actor Brad Pitt, as you know, came to America to talk about the newest movie that embraces the human condition and science through space exploration in celebration of Japan Space Day, September 12th, the day of my first space flight. When I mention space exploration gifts for a sustainable future, many people puzzles. So let me explain. The International Space Station was developing through the collaboration between 16 countries. This was the first human collaborative achievement to build a research laboratory in space by challenging and overcoming many difficulties. Let me show you how the human species is identified from space. Earth is so beautiful. This wondrous Earth is floating in the utter blackness of space. This Earth has existed with a multitude of life for almost 4 billion years. In daytime, no human activity can be seen, except in snow areas. When we orbited the northern hemisphere, we flew over the Asian continent, and I saw many black dots on the white snow. The bigger the dots, the more the people. Very big black area had millions of people. The darker dots result from burning coal, and that changes the color of human environments as seen from space. In North America and Europe, for example, dots were less dark because of using other than coal as energy. Nighttime and human existence is clearly visible. I first saw these magnificent sights in 1992 with just 5.5 billion people on Earth. And now our species exceeding 7.6 billion, even more lights. In addition to the orange illumination, what you are seeing from space of the planet is beautiful and deadly. and forever changed my life. This is what I saw as the space shuttle flew through the aurora. And keep in mind, the aurora is a result of deadly solar winds. That's not what changed my life. It was the thin, delicate atmosphere that covers and protects Earth from dangers of cosmic radiation and allows all life to exist. Humans exist as a result of Earth's environment. This graph shows a variation of average temperature of the Earth within 100,000 years. We have been lucky over the last 10,000 years as the average temperature has been warm and steady, called the Holocene period. Our ancestors existed in Ice Age of more than 100,000 years and survived by following migrating animals, thus living without a settlement. Those humans suffered shortages of food in a freezing environment all the time. The Holocene period allowed our species to invent agriculture, and so to live in a permanent place. This provided a unique, sustainable lifestyle that separated the human species from other life forms. Since agriculture, the human population increased and has greatly accelerated in recent decades due to many advances, particularly from science and technology. A new era began when the human species acquired a global view from space, as it convinced us that our planet is the only environment we have to sustain our species. Then, at the beginning of this century, we had a genomic view on the atomic level that convinced us the human species is not so special among the diversified earthbound life forms from the viewpoint of DNA sequence. Now, Earth is hitting humans with hard reality. Artificial intelligence is creating a super nature and a super reality. We need measure to deal with these in order to sustain humanity. Science and technology provide a new perspective, the tsunagari of life, which means in Japanese, establishing a relationship with the network of life over time. It starts with every life form consisting of cells, and for living cells to be sustained, they need atmosphere, light, and temperature. We now move to the individual human, and I call that tsunagari of individual. The individual tsunagari sustains the individual with the essence of life, food, air, water. But the individual's lifespan is only around 100 years at the most. To continue, we need the tsunagari of societies with the goal of sustaining human life. A human society is made up of many cultures, such as religion, military, politics, business, to name a few. No one culture alone can sustain a society. Rather, each culture contributes to the whole. This society concept worked quite well until humans started having major impact on our planet. Now we are aware of global problems that affect all life, just as no one individual can sustain a society. No one society can sustain our planet. To sustain our human species, we must sustain the natural environment of Earth, so we must progress to the tsunagari of the planet of life. a transformation designed to sustain all life through the integration of all combined wisdom from all societies by means of science communication. It is important to realize that humans are just one of over 50 million life forms. All are connected through the global environment, through biodiversity, sustainability, symbiosis, and the genome. In order to bring all this together, we need a fresh perspective, a global wisdom of our Earth, thereby ensuring the sustainability of our human race. We can work towards sustaining this phenomenal Earth environment, our home, our planet of life, and thus sustain our species. I leave you with this image that always gives me hope. It is from the moon-orbiting Japanese satellite called Kaguya. We call this Earthrise. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohri. All right, I would love to open up the floor for questions for Dr. We have
so many
over here in the middle with a question.
Okay. 1, 2, and 3. Yes.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you so much for the talk. But hearing about all your experiences that you've went through, I have a question about what lessons have you learned through all these different experiences?
Nice. That's correct. Yes, because I challenged something extreme environment. So probably I could acquire that kind of idea.
Nice. We have one more question here. Then we'll go to that one.
Thank you so much for being here, and it's great to see Asimo featured in some of your presentation as well. I was just wondered, global governments around the world are really, stepping up to the plate somewhat according to climate change and the agreements, but how important is it for the private sector to also contribute to climate change as well?
That's a very big question and important for future of our human sustainability. Well, climate change, for example, cutting-edge science alone cannot solve because dynamics of culture, nations, and group of some business people, a lot of conflicts. So I've got an idea. Well, AI, artificial intelligence, that will be developed. Nice. Then that can predict exactly, which country or which region produces carbon dioxide and what season, what time, and which company. Then probably we have to follow what AI will tell us. Well, we believe in God, but the same thing, science is a kind of common knowledge that affects based, so that we trust science. AI is a product of science. So probably not far future, but AI may be able to, give us a clue for that, and hopefully we can solve this problem. And younger generation, surely we will be able to overcome.
Nice. Yes.
Hopefully.
Any more questions? We have a question there, and we will conclude with the last question here.
Hello. Hi. I just wanted to ask, have astronauts and people who work in this space found a planet that humans can live in the future?
Another planet that humans can live in the future, other planets.
Very good question again. Well, in my experience, it's not easy to live outer planet. I mean, like Moon or the Mars. It's okay as a tourist to have a look, as a scientist to research. But generation to generation, if human beings live in such a planet, we have to take all life forms bound on this Earth. I experienced something, example. When Space Shuttle landed on the Kennedy Space Center, hatch opened, then fresh air came in. I felt very much at home. Why? I could smell of swamp and, Kennedy Space Center has a lot of animals and my fellow astronaut waiting for our landing handed me a chilled glass of water. I drank it. So tasty. Why? Because in space, everything is artificial. Even water. Space shuttle carries fuel cell. Do you know what's fuel cell? Fuel cell is, we take hydrogen and oxygen and using catalysis, we get electric power from that chemical reaction. As a byproduct, we get H2O, water. And in space, we drink not just pure water, H2O, tasteless. And then, in space, everything is artificial, no life other than human we take over there. Nice. So my experience, feeling, if you live in Mars or the Moon, you have to take many life forms with you. I don't think that is possible. Instead, the ultimate goal of exploring space is not to reach other planet. Rather, we, I think, look back the precious environment of space. Yuri Gagarin, first human into space, and he said, Earth is beautifully shining. And every astronaut so far flew. Probably you can ask any astronaut. They all say, Earth is so beautiful. Why is that? Because Earth is the only place we can live.
Nice. Hey, we promised one more question. We're a little bit over time, but that would be our final questions.
Hello, Dr. Mohri. Thank you for your inspiring remarks. If you have a single advice to humanity from space, what would you say?
Well, your life is important, but your life is also connected to every life form on this planet. With the history of 4 billion years, you are one of life forms.
With that, thank you so much, Dr. Mohri. I think You've inspired us all to be more cautious about everyday life so that we can save our precious planet.
I enjoyed it very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
طيب وصلنا لختام محاضرات منصة تنوين أو ملتقى تنوين. روعة، إيش إحساسك؟
والله الحمد لله خلصنا ده الأسبوع، ولكن الأسبوع الجاي إن شاء الله في 3 أيام قادمة حتكون في السينما بإذن الله.
فلا تنسوا ال3 الأيام 23 و24 و25 أكتوبر. ونذكركم أيضا إنه في الكلتشر اويسيس فيها بعض الفعاليات الآن أو بعض اللي فيها نتوركينج ايفنت، فشاركوا فيها الآن إذا تحبوا.
بعض متحدثين حيكونوا معانا هناك اليوم كمان.
يا سلام، فإتس ا جود تشانس يعني don't miss it. وصراحة كانت 3 أيام بالنسبة لنا جدا جدا رائعة. شكرا لحضوركم الجميل. كان معاكم عبد الله الدماك.
روعة بخ، شكرا لكم.